Chapter 6:18. In the beginning, Murong-su was somewhat confused. Then, he understood that they were in the right place. Indeed, while that elder laughed, he gave a long sigh. I thought that you guys would not come so quickly. Where are the things? Qin Wushuang asked. Things? The old man smiled mysteriously. His gaze stopped at the edge of the well. His body moved like lightning, and he actually jumped into the well. In a moment, like a fish leaping through the dragon gate, this elder scuttled up again. There were already 3 golden and dazzling objects in his hand. They were the spiritual keys to open the endless Eastern Sea. Initially, before Qin Wushuang had left the human countries, he had made an agreement with Zhuo Buchuan. When Zhuo Buchuan and the others entered the endless Eastern Sea, they would entrust the spiritual keys to one of their trusted aides. What Qin Wushuang needed to do was to follow the clues and find this person. Unexpectedly, it was an elder. After receiving the spiritual keys, Qin Wushuang did not linger. He left the imperial capital and headed directly to the border of the endless Eastern Sea. With their current speed, it would not take much time to reach the endless Eastern Sea. Soon, they arrived at the border of the endless Eastern Sea. In fact, the coastline of the endless Eastern Sea was extremely long. However, this desolate 1,000 miles of coastline had always been viewed as a line of death. It was because since ancient times, when the human countries explored the endless Eastern Sea, almost no one had returned safely from those who tried to avoid the designated entrance. It was not to say that there were no such records. However, there were very few such records and the possibility was next to none. Although there were barriers at the designated entrance, the risk would be much lower at the designated entrance. It would be much safer with a fixed route. Historically, those who had successfully explored the endless Eastern Sea and returned had entered through the designated entrance. And to enter this designated entrance, they would need to pass through 3 layers of spiritual barriers. These 3 spiritual keys were the key to open this spiritual barrier. There were 2 tall mountains in front of them, and a valley was sandwiched between the mountains, extending all the way into the valley. Qin Wushuang stood before the entrance of the valley. He did not dare to neglect and observed carefully. He pointed at the pile of rocks in front of him and said to Murong-su, "You said that the human countries are of little value to the Tian-Xian land. Why would they set up these 3 powerful seals at the border?" It looked like a pile of rocks in front of them, but in fact it was a very hidden spatial array. Once one barged in recklessly, one would be attacked by the restrictions. It was extremely dangerous. Qin Wushuang raised the first spirit key and used his spirit qi to gently push it. The spirit key immediately expanded in the wind and turned into a golden sword, shooting directly into the depths of the void. A ray of silver light shot out, as if it was an innate tacit understanding, and swallowed the golden longsword. When the golden sword swallowed it, a spatial tear immediately appeared in the void. Once there was an invisible door that slowly opened. Qin Wushuang called out to Murong-su, "Suer, let's go in." 2 figures went in suddenly and passed through this spatial tear. They broke through the first seal. After passing through the first seal, the golden longsword slowly transformed back into the shape of a golden key and slowly dropped back. Qin Wushuang waved his hand and caught the golden key. Qin Wushuang had also received private instruction from Zhuo Buchuan on how to control the spirit key. Thus, he did not appear to be flustered. After passing through the first seal, they walked forward along the valley and arrived before the second seal after walking for a few dozen miles. Qin Wushuang followed the same pattern. Only, it took them longer to pass through the second seal than the first one. After all, each seal was more complicated than the previous one. Naturally, it would be more troublesome to open it. Even Murong-su, someone who had seen a lot at the Xian Yuan Mound, was slightly surprised by this seal. He said to Qin Wushuang, "Brother Qin, this seal does not appear simple. If it's not the work of a supreme Tao expert, they would not be able to set up such a seal. Yes, even for a supreme Tao elite warrior, it would not be easy to set up such a trap. It seems that there are too many mysteries in this Tianxian land. Murong Su nodded. Initially, the endless Eastern Sea is the most mysterious and the most vast place among the 5 forbidden spiritual zones. Maybe it's a restriction set up by the Dragon Clan themselves. Yes, regardless of the mysteries, there will be a day when the truth comes to light. Su-er, let's keep moving forward, we will arrive soon. I really hope we are not too far away from the exit. That endless Eastern Sea is not an ordinary place. The more we walk, the more danger there will be. The two of them did not stop. Although the third seal was more complicated, with the spirit key in hand, despite the complicated process, the result was not suspenseful. After passing through the 3 seals smoothly, the two of them arrived at the estuary. As far as the eye could see, the boundless sea appeared magnificent. Even when Qin Wushuang initiated his spiritual perception with all his power, he could only see a wave of white fog covering the sky and the earth. Su-er, wait here, I will observe from the sky and see where they are. Murong Su shook her head. Brother Qin, I will go with you. Qin Wushuang knew that Murong Su was reluctant to part with him and could not persuade her. The two of them flew into the sky and started to search above the boundless sea. As soon as they entered the endless Eastern Sea, the environment immediately became dangerous. From time to time, giant waves would rush up to the sky. Fortunately, the two of them were at a higher location. After traveling for a moment, they did not see a single figure. Qin Wushuang spread out his spiritual perception and discovered a cluster of islands 200 miles away from the sea. After some careful observation, there were indeed signs of human habitation. Overjoyed, Qin Wushuang rushed towards that island with Murong Su. Indeed, as soon as they approached that island, Qin Wushuang immediately sensed some familiar presence. Indeed, it was here. Qin Wushuang was overjoyed as he shouted, "Teacher, are you guys here?" The whistling sound of the waves sounded like the roar of the devil from hell. Despite this fact, Qin Wushuang's voice still penetrated through layers of barriers like a sharp sword and went straight to that island. This island was not big and only had a radius of a few miles. Currently, these people from the Stargaze Palace, as well as Qin Wushuang's family, were all on this island. Initially, they were on a giant ship. However, their giant ship had encountered a tsunami and was destroyed. If this island was not nearby, each of them would have been buried at the bottom of the sea. They had stayed on this island for a few years. Of course, the 5 palace masters could withstand it. Even the younger disciples were barely able to withstand it. The weakest ones were Qin Xiu and her son. Although Qin Xiu and her son had consumed the green ice heart fruit, in the end, it had only been a short time and their strength was too shallow. They could not withstand it on this island. Zhuobuchuan and Tan Zhongqi were thinking of a way to leave this island and head inland. Suddenly, they were overjoyed when they heard Qin Wushuang's voice. Currently, De Shiming's strength had also increased. With the help of the green ice heart fruit, he had also reached the advanced stage. Now, he was worried about his wife and son. When he heard Qin Wushuang's voice, he was overjoyed. "Wushuang, Wushuang, we are here." De Shiming was overjoyed. It was rare for him to lose his composure. He immediately waved his sleeves and shouted. Qin Wushuang was also overjoyed when he heard the voice of his brother-in-law, De Shiming. He asked, "Brother-in-law, are sister and Chengqing well?" "Wushuang, you came just in time. If you had not come, the situation would not have been good." Now, Zhuobuchuan, Tan Zhongqi and the others also rushed out and waved their hands in the open space. Qin Wushuang and Murong Su dropped to the ground with a face full of joy. Qin Xiu and Chengqing did not have any major problems. Only, they were somewhat weak after a long period of time under such high pressure. Qin Wushuang gave them a few pills. Of course, they were the supreme quality pills left by Lu Xianlu. Naturally, the pills left by Lu Xianlu were incomparable to the pills made in the human countries. After Qin Xiu and Chengqing had consumed it, they saw immediate effects. Wu Shuang, you are finally back! Junior brother Wu Shuang, his family, teachers, fellow disciples, each of them greeted him. Qin Wu Shuang introduced Murong Su to everyone. Murong Su answered each of them politely. When introducing his fellow disciples, Tan Zhongqi laughed. Wu Shuang, Miss Mu Rong had helped us a lot, of course we know each other. Zhou Fu asked jokingly. Junior brother Wu Shuang, in the future, how should we address Miss Mu Rong? Should we call her sister-in-law, or Miss Mu Rong? Everyone laughed and Qin Lianshan was in a good mood. Wu Shuang, Miss Mu Rong has done so much for you. In the future, you must treat her well. Qin Wu Shuang laughed. Father, of course. Tan Zhongqi laughed. Wu Shuang, you did not understand your father's implied meaning. He is hinting to you that he wants to have a grandchild soon. Isn't that right, junior brother Lianshan? Qin Lianshan laughed. Palace Master Tan knows me well, ha ha. Zhuobuchuan walked up with a smile. Wu Shuang, did your trip to the Xian Yuan Mound go smoothly? Is the Stargaze Palace still safe? When he mentioned the Stargaze Palace, instantly, Qin Wu Shuang's face darkened. When everyone saw Qin Wu Shuang's expression, they immediately felt that something was wrong. Tan Zhongqi asked in a low voice, Wu Shuang, did something happen? Murong Su knew that the calamity that had befallen the Stargaze Palace was the eternal pain in Qin Wu Shuang's heart. Thus, he spoke on behalf of him. Palace Masters, that heavenly Luo Daoist sect has lost their minds. They could not deal with Brother Qin and sent elite warriors to slaughter the Stargaze Palace. They have suffered a great loss. Both Zhuobuchuan and Tan Zhongqi's face darkened. They looked at each other and sighed. Before the powerful forces, they were helpless. In fact, they had retreated from this endless eastern sea. In fact, wasn't it a form of escape? However, besides escaping, they had no other choice. To the Stargaze Palace, the heavenly Luo Daoist sect was an existence they could not challenge. Murong Su knew their feelings as he comforted them. Palace Masters, don't be too sad. Brother Qin has already returned an eye for an eye and given the heavenly Luo Daoist sect enough revenge. Brother Qin single-handedly killed his way to the heavenly Luo Daoist sect's headquarters and destroyed their spiritual qi source. He destroyed all of their defenses and destroyed their root. The loss of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect would only be greater than the Stargaze Palace. Both Zhuobuchuan and Tan Zhongqi's eyes lit up as they praised in unison. Wu Shuang, beautifully done. Within the Tianxian land, killing was unavoidable. However, they could not sit and wait for death. They must return an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 619. Hearing the words of Murong Su, these leaders of the Stargaze Palace felt much better. Since the ancient times, it was normal for sects to kill each other. Even the annihilation of a sect was a common thing. Although the Stargaze Palace had suffered heavy losses, the core layer did not suffer any serious injuries. Their vitality was not greatly damaged. As long as they had some time to recover, they would be able to regroup. The most important thing was that the enemy had paid an even heavier price. That was the most important thing. After Qin Wu Shuang had returned, the crisis for the Stargaze Palace had been temporarily resolved. Naturally, they did not need to suffer in this endless eastern sea. In fact, this time they did not have much luck. They had encountered such a huge wave when they had only gone out to sea for a few hundred miles. Not to mention that they were only on the surface of the sea and had not even entered the bottom of the sea. The ship had been shattered by the waves and sunk to the bottom of the sea. The true center of the endless eastern sea was not on the surface of the sea, but at the bottom of the sea. The size of these tens of millions of miles of sea had surpassed the total size of all the other forbidden spiritual zones in the Tian land. Don't underestimate these few hundred miles of sea. It would be troublesome for these 200 or 300 people without a ship. Fortunately, these were all core disciples of the Stargaze Palace. Besides those trusted aides from the heavenly royal mansion, they were all elite warriors at the upper sky realm. Although they could not fly, it would not be a problem for them to travel a few hundred miles of sea. As for those people from the heavenly royal mansion, they would need Qin Wushuang to carry them. At this moment, Qin Wushuang did not hold back as he also summoned the remaining 5 sealed spiritual beasts. With spiritual beasts at the ravine mysterious martial stage and the perfect void martial stage as laborers, it was easy to transport these people. In a moment everyone had landed safely. The spiritual key could be used inside and outside as they opened the 3 barriers with ease. After leaving the endless Eastern Sea, everyone felt relieved of a heavy burden. In recent years, the days had been somewhat unbearable. After leaving the endless Eastern Sea, of course they must avoid people's eyes and ears. Qin Wushuang led the heavenly royal mansion into one group. The core disciples of the Stargaze Palace took the other group. Naturally, the remaining disciples of the Stargaze Palace were overjoyed at the unexpected turn of events when they heard that the 5 palace masters had returned. Indeed, the clouds had parted to reveal the bright moon. Instantly, the initially gloomy Stargaze Palace was brimming with vitality. The heavy news of the return of the 5 palace masters of the Stargaze Palace immediately caused a huge uproar in the human countries. The great Luo Empire, which was originally thought to be on the verge of collapse, suddenly became as stable as a mountain. As for those restless forces, they quietly put down their wild ambitions. Although the Stargaze Palace had suffered a fatal blow, the core of the Stargaze Palace did not suffer much damage. In other words, the Stargaze Palace still possessed a powerful vitality. It might even be stronger than before. It was because both the head palace master and the second palace master of the Stargaze Palace had broken through the shackles of the spiritual martial force and entered the void martial force. To the human countries, this was a grand occasion that had not happened in the past few hundred years. If the Stargaze Palace had not suffered this attack from the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, Qin Wushuang would not have interfered with the secular affairs of the Stargaze Palace. It was because with the Stargaze Palace's position in the human countries, there was no need for him to make a move. Due to the calamity of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, Qin Wushuang was duty-bound to rebuild the Stargaze Palace. Although he could not interfere with the conflicts between the human countries, his support was extremely important to the Stargaze Palace. Regarding the Stargaze Palace's comeback, the Dragon and Tiger sect was the most surprised. Thinking of Qin Wushuang's warning to Xia Tianming, the Dragon and Tiger sect finally realized how stupid their ambition had been in the past. Without a doubt, the Stargaze Palace would become a long-term leader of the human countries. Not to mention the Dragon and Tiger sect, even the 9 Raven Temple and the Emperor Buddha Palace would not be able to fight against the Stargaze Palace if they continued to develop with this momentum. In the end, the Stargaze Palace had already broken through the existing structure of the human countries with the emergence of an elite warrior that defied the natural order like Qin Wushuang. Wushuang, initially when I brought you to the Stargaze Palace from the human countries, I knew that you would become the pride of the Stargaze Palace. However, I never expected that you would rise at such a fast speed. Ha ha, head palace master, have you ever expected this day? Tan Zhongqi was extremely moved. With such a disciple, what more could he ask for? Regardless of the Stargaze Palace's crisis, they could sit back and relax. With Qin Wushuang here, even if the Stargaze Palace had fallen into a low point, they would not need to worry. Qin Wushuang's strength was enough to turn the tide with a lift of his hand. Zhuobuchuan gave a long sigh. Initially, we expected Wushuang to shine with Wei Yi. Now Wei Yi is also progressing according to his speed and progress. However, Who would have thought that Wushuang is already a few steps ahead of Wei Yi? Even us old fellows will find it hard to catch up to him. For example, Zhong Wuyin, the third palace master, Leng Qiuqi, the fourth palace master, and Tian Zhixing, the fifth palace master were speechless. It was because they could no longer find the appropriate words to describe Qin Wushuang. Inwardly, they could only feel deeply moved. Tan Zhongqi laughed. In fact, I did not wish for Wushuang to grow this fast. Look, now that he has entered the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan, he is a famous person in the Xian Yuan Mound. Naturally, he could no longer get involved in the conflicts between the human countries. Although Tan Zhongqi's words sounded regretful, in fact, he was trying to make excuses for Qin Wushuang. He was reminding everyone to pay attention to Qin Wushuang's current identity and not to blame Qin Wushuang too much. These old guys had a mutual understanding with each other. Hearing Tan Zhongqi's words, they all nodded. That's right. In the future, Wushuang can only work behind the scenes if he wants to contribute to the Stargaze Palace. Of course, I don't believe that there is a situation in the human countries that the Stargaze Palace cannot handle. Unless someone else from the Xian Yuan Mound comes. Qin Wushuang said, Palace Masters, since the Heavenly Emperor has spoken, no one would dare to go against the will of the Heavenly Emperor. Additionally, if someone from the forbidden spiritual zones were to step out, I would not stand by and do nothing. Yes, Wushuang, you should develop at ease in the Xian Yuan Mound. In the human countries, with us 5 palace masters and those protectors you recruited, it's enough to deal with any situation in the human countries. Qin Wushuang nodded and took out 2 communication jade plates. He handed them to Zhuo Buchuan and Tan Zhongqi. Head palace master, teacher, I asked a talisman master to make this communication jade plate. It's extremely useful. With this thing, we can communicate through our spiritual perception even if we are millions of miles away. If there are any movements in the Xian Yuan Mound, I can inform you immediately. This way, you will have enough time to prepare in the human countries. To the human countries, this communication jade plate was definitely a luxury item. Zhuo Buchuan and Tan Zhongqi took it and still found it hard to believe. Unfortunately, I only made 10 of the materials, Qin Wushuang said with a smile. Yes, Wushuang, we will accept your kind intentions. Tan Zhongqi did not hold back. In fact, he was enjoying the benefits brought by his disciple. Qin Wushuang said with a smile. There are also some weapons and armor, I will give them to the Stargaze Palace later. Qin Wushuang had upgraded his equipment at a fast speed. Naturally, he had gotten rid of many useless weapons. There were also some that he had acquired after killing enemies. Qin Wushuang valued quality over quantity. Of course, he would get rid of the excess. Perhaps those equipment were not treasures in the Xian Yuan Mound. However, in the human countries they were treasures. After practicing with his teachers for a while, Tan Zhongqi laughed. Wushuang, you don't need to stay here with us, go see your father and family. Currently, Murong Su was not accompanying Qin Wushuang. Instead, he was chatting with Qin Xiu. Qin Xiu had a gentle personality and naturally, she got along well with Murong Su. After only a few words, Murong Su had fallen deeply in love with this sister-in-law. He only felt that although Qin Xiu was born in the human countries, her temperament did not lose to the daughters of wealthy families in the Xian Yuan Mound. Of course, Qin Xiu and Murong Su did not get tired of each other and were extremely satisfied with each other. When Qin Wushuang returned, Qin Xiu said with a smile, Wushuang, come quickly, chat with me. Qin Wushuang had loved and cared for his sister since he was young. He walked over with a smile. Sister, where is father and brother-in-law? They took Qingqing out. Sister, this time, besides bringing Su Er to see you guys, I came back to talk to you guys about Qingqing. Qingqing? Yes, sister, this time, I came to move the Eastwood Qin bloodline back to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. I just don't know what father thinks. Father has always wanted to acknowledge his ancestors. It has always been a knot in his heart. Of course, he will not object. If Father is willing to go, will you guys go? If Father goes, of course we will go. Wushuang, have you settled everything at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Qin Wushuang said, everything is settled, we can go back at any time. We can arrange it at any time. Even the remains of our ancestors will be moved back? Qin Wushuang shook his head. For now, we can't move it. I plan to take you guys to familiarize yourself, then when the time is right. Before Qin Wushuang had finished speaking, Qin Lianshan had just walked in from the outside. Clearly, he had heard Qin Wushuang's words as he walked over. Wushuang, can we not move the remains of our ancestors? Qin Wushuang could only tell him the truth. Unless he had made great contributions at the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan headquarters, it was not that he could not move them back. Instead, he could only settle them outside the Sacrificial Valley. This way, when he entered the Sacrificial Valley in the future, he would have to move them again. It would be disrespectful to the ancestors. Qin Lianshan said with a low voice, Wushuang, then we will not go to the aspiring Throne Mountain with you this time. When the time is right, we will go together. Qin Wushuang was not in a rush as he nodded. Then let's wait some more. Sis, how about I take Chengcheng over first? With Chengcheng's foundation, it would be a pity to let him develop in the human countries. But Chengcheng's surname is not Qin. Qin Xiu was somewhat worried about personal gains and losses. Haha, sis, the Qin clan also has disciples with foreign surnames. Regardless of elders or core disciples, there are elite warriors with foreign surnames. Although Chengcheng is not from the Qin clan, he is a relative of the clan. Qin Xiu was rather hesitant. After all, Chengcheng had never been separated from her when he was 4 or 5 years old. Of course, Qin Xiu's maternal instinct overflowed when they were suddenly separated. De Shiming also walked in and said, Wushuang, then you can take Chengcheng. Compared to Qin Xiu's maternal instinct, De Shiming carried the mentality of wanting his son to become a dragon. Regardless, developing at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain would definitely have a much brighter future than developing at the human countries. Since everyone had different opinions, they could only look at Qin Lianshan and wait for him to make the decision. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 620. Qin Lianshan understood the big picture. He knew clearly the difference between staying in the human countries and going to the forbidden spiritual zones. However, at this time, it was not appropriate for him to appear too forceful. Instead, he said, Ming Xiu if you ask for my opinion, for sure you will go to the forbidden spiritual zones. Everyone knows that you will make this choice. However, Ming after all, Chengcheng has the surname De Shi. For this matter, you can discuss it with your family. De Shi Ming's status had risen because of his wife. Naturally, he was able to achieve his current strength and almost stand at the peak of the human countries because he had married Qin Xiu. He had benefited from Qin Wushuang, his brother-in-law. Or else, with De Shi Ming's talent, it would have been impossible for him to enter the upper sky realm. First, Qin Wushuang had given him the supreme quality initial stage pills to help him break into the upper sky realm. Plus, the green ice heart fruit had greatly increased his potential. Now, to them who had consumed the green ice heart fruit, the upper sky realm was almost insignificant. This green ice heart fruit was enough to help them break into the void martial stage easily. As for what level they could reach in the void martial stage, it would depend on their luck. However, at least, with such strength, they would be invincible in the human countries. Hearing the words of his father-in-law, De Shi Ming also felt extremely gratified inwardly. He nodded. Okay, let's go ask when we return. However, I believe that father will not object. The Stargaze Palace had already started to rebuild. Although a large group of disciples had died in the previous calamity, a small group of survivors had gone missing, and a portion of them had left secretly. The core members of the sect had not lost much. It was beneficial for the reconstruction. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner as they rebuilt the mountain gate. Qin Wushuang decided to return to the Bayou country first. Regardless, he had left the heavenly royal mansion for too long. He must go back and take a look. Although the heavenly royal mansion would not be a place for the Eastwood Qin to develop in the long term, he could not lose it before he left. When Qin Wushuang told this matter to the 5 palace masters, of course, they would not object. Now, they could not interfere with Qin Wushuang too much. When returning to the Bayou country, Qin Wushuang's group also kept a low profile. Qin Wushuang's whereabouts were also not exposed. Besides people from the Stargaze Palace, only a few people from the Dragon and Tiger sect knew about Qin Wushuang's return. Dragon Tiger sect had lost so much face, so naturally, they could not spread the news. Of course, the people of the Stargaze Palace knew that Qin Wushuang's identity was extremely sensitive, and they would not leak it. To the Bayou country, the return of the Heavenly King was definitely a piece of good news. Following the change of the political situation, the position of the Heavenly Royal Mansion in the Bayou country was completely different than a few years ago. Currently, the Heavenly Royal Mansion was the totem of the Bayou country. It had even surpassed the existence of the Martial Saint Mountain. Everyone knew that the Heavenly Prince Mansion had several Khanate masters. Now, even the housekeeper of the Heavenly King Mansion was a Khanate expert. Not to mention the Heavenly King and his son-in-law. Of course, the royal family and the Martial Sacred Mountain were not jealous of this. They had already accepted this situation. They all knew that with Qin Wushuang here, the Heavenly Royal Mansion held a superior position. They would not covet the authority of their little Bayou country. If the Heavenly Royal Mansion was willing, it would not be a problem for them to become an overlord in the great Luo Empire. To the Bayou country, the current Heavenly Royal Mansion was not a royal territory, but a holy place and a major backer. They could only curry favor with them. Thus, when the Heavenly King returned, all parties in the Bayou country scrambled to pay their respects. Of course, there was no need for Qin Wushuang to show his face. His current identity was sensitive, and he was not deliberately putting on airs. In fact, there was no need for Qin Wushuang to step out. With the current identity and position of Qin Lianshan and De Shiming, it was enough to intimidate the Bayou country and deal with any situation. When he returned to the Heavenly Royal City, Qin Sishi, Go Xing, the 2 housekeepers had been waiting for him with their people. Last time when the Heavenly Luo Daoist sect had invaded, they had focused their attacks on the Stargaze Palace. However, they did not sweep through the Heavenly Royal Mansion. Or else, most likely, he would not have seen these 2 housekeepers. Marquis, the heavens have taken pity on us, you are finally back. Qin Sishi's loyalty to Qin Lianshan could not be understood by ordinary people. Tears streamed down his face. In this year, he had heard too many rumors. They all said that the Heavenly Royal Mansion and his followers had been slaughtered to the last person. These rumors had troubled the Heavenly Royal Mansion and all the people of the Bayou country. Now, when they heard that the Heavenly King had returned, of course, they lined the streets to welcome him. Inside and outside the Heavenly Royal City, people had come to welcome the return of the Heavenly King. Usually, Qin Lianshan treated his people with kindness and kindness. Thus, he had won the hearts of the people. Plus, the people's admiration for the Heavenly Royal Mansion was out of control. Fortunately, the Heavenly Royal City was newly built and the streets were wide. Thus, it did not cause any traffic jams. Qin Wushuang and Murong Su had disguised themselves and walked on the streets of the Heavenly Royal City. Of course, these ordinary people could not recognize them with their naked eyes. Murong Su was in an extremely happy mood. She liked this feeling very much. She was walking with the person she loved the most in the land where he had grown up. She could feel the footsteps of her sweetheart as he grew up. Brother Qin, your hometown is beautiful. Murong-su sighed from the bottom of her heart. This was not a false compliment. The construction of this heavenly royal city was based on the river county and the Eastwood town. Especially the Eastwood town, it was backed by the Great Song Mountains. Indeed, it was an extremely beautiful place. Su-er, look at that mountain, it is the Great Song Mountains. Following Qin Wushuang's hand gesture, Murong-su looked towards the direction of the Great Song Mountains and said leisurely, Brother Qin, in the past, you trained at the Great Song Mountains, right? Yes, the Great Song Mountains were like a mother to me. They nurtured me. Su-er, I am able to have my current strength, to let the Eastwood Qin return to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, and to get to know you. All of these are because of the Great Song Mountains. Without the Great Song Mountains, I would not be who I am today. Murong-su was entranced by his words. Brother Qin, can you take me for a walk? Sure. Qin Wushuang's feelings towards the Great Song Mountains could not be understood by ordinary people. He was happy to share this feeling with Murong-su. After returning to the royal mansion, Qin Wushuang realized that Xiao Guan had disappeared. Qin Wushuang gave a light sigh. In the end, this young man could not endure the loneliness and left the heavenly royal mansion? Qin Wushuang was slightly disappointed. He valued Xiao Guan and admired his character. Since he did not see Xiao Guan, he only thought that he had left when he saw the situation was not good. Immediately, he walked to the main hall. Qin Cixi and Gou Xing were reporting to Qin Lianshan about the royal mansion. Overall, the heavenly royal mansion had been very peaceful these days. When they saw Qin Wushuang walk in, both Qin Cixi and Gou Xing were stunned. Apparently, they could not recognize Qin Wushuang after he had disguised himself. Qin Wushuang smiled lightly. Uncle Cixi, Butler Gou, don't you recognize me? Young master? Both Qin Cixi and Gou Xing were stunned as they looked at Qin Wushuang with astonishment. Qin Lianshan laughed. Wushuang, you are home, don't wear the mask. With your skills, the people you don't want to see will not be able to see you. Qin Wushuang laughed and did not take off his mask. Instead, he asked, Uncle Cixi, how come I did not see Xiao Guan when I came back this time? Qin Cixi and Gou Xing looked at each other in dismay with an unnatural expression. What's wrong? Qin Wushuang frowned slightly. Ah, this kid is not very honest. Qin Cixi gave a long sigh. In the beginning, I thought this kid was very honest. Unexpectedly, half a year ago, rumors kept coming in from the outside. They said that the young master had been killed in the Xian Yuan Mound, and that the Marquis and his subordinates would not return. Us old guys did not believe it and did not allow these boring rumors to spread inside the mansion. However, this Xiao Guan had been acting strangely ever since. Qin Wushuang felt somewhat puzzled. How so? He always made mistakes in the things we gave him. He also made mistakes in the account. For big and small matters, he kept making mistakes. We didn't even know how many times we had to clean up his mess. One day, the servants of the mansion told us that Xiao Guan had left the mansion and disappeared without a trace. Left the mansion and disappeared without a trace. Qin Wushuang felt it was even more inconceivable. He saw that Xiao Guan did not seem like a cowardly person who would cower in the face of danger. Or else, Qin Wushuang would not have taken him in. Yes, this Xiao Guan is truly an ungrateful person. Young master, you nurtured him and helped him to reach the upper sky realm. In the end, when he entered the upper sky realm, he drank water and forgot about the person who dug the well. After hearing a few rumors, he ran away without a trace. This kid is unreliable. Qin Cixi had a stomach full of complaints. Gou Xing also smiled bitterly. In the past, he had also changed sides at the last moment. However, that was because he did not have a wise leader. Now, he followed a wise leader like the Qin family. Even Go Xing would not change sides at the last moment. Unexpectedly, that young man Xiao Guan was even more afraid of trouble despite his strength. He just left quietly? He did not leave a letter or anything. Both Qin Xixi and Go Xing shook their heads. He did not leave anything, he left quietly. Qin Wushuang felt it was strange. This did not seem like Xiao Guan's style at all. With Xiao Guan's personality, even if he was going to leave, he would not have left no explanation. Although that kid was somewhat impulsive, he was someone who valued friendship. Qin Wushuang would not believe that he had run away at the last moment. You guys did not move his place, right? Qin Wushuang asked. No, we could not move it either. Initially, we thought he had only gone out for a short while and might come back. So, we did not move. Unexpectedly, he never came back. I will go take a look. Qin Wushuang frowned slightly and waved his hand. Then, he floated towards Xiao Guan's place. Xiao Guan's place was considered a core place in the royal mansion. It was enough to see that he held a high position in the heavenly royal mansion. Qin Wushuang pushed open the door and walked in. There was already a wave of damp and moldy smell in the room. Qin Wushuang swept his sleeve and swept away all the filth that had not been cleaned for a long time. Indeed, no one had touched this room. Qin Wushuang looked around and saw nothing inappropriate on the table, chair, and bed. After looking for a moment, suddenly, Qin Wushuang had an idea. He pushed the secret compartment of the cabinet and instantly, the secret compartment of the cabinet popped out. There was a wax pellet inside. Apparently, there was something wrapped inside this wax pellet. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 621. With the wax pellet in his hand, Qin Wushuang squeezed it lightly and crushed it. Indeed, there was a small ball of paper inside. When he opened it, it was a letter. The letter was not long, it was addressed to Qin Wushuang because it started with the words, "Young Master, please read it personally. Young Master, I know that you will see this letter for sure. I do not believe those boring rumors from the outside world. Young Master's kindness to me is as heavy as a mountain. I should do anything to repay you. If I can return to the Nine Raven Empire smoothly. Young Master will not see this letter. If you see this letter, most likely I will not come back. It is not that I am ungrateful, but the hatred of the family is hard to explain. Recently, there is new news that my little sister is still alive and has been offered to the shameless aristocrats by old Pei. My little sister and I have depended on each other since young. If I do not rescue her, I will not feel at ease. If I fail, I will die for sure. I can only repay your kindness in my next life. Qin Wushuang sighed inwardly. Looking at the date at the back of the letter, 5 or 6 months had passed. 5 or 6 months was enough for a lot of things to happen. Qin Wushuang did not feel good. He had felt that something was wrong. Running away in the face of danger was not Xiao Guan's style. There must be something else. Obviously, Xiao Guan had planned this. If he could return smoothly from the Nine Raven Empire, he would destroy this letter. If he did not return, normal servants would not be able to find this letter. One must admit that Xiao Guan's plan was very smart. Qin Wushuang searched for a while and returned to the main hall after finding no other clues. Wushuang, did you find anything? Qin Wushuang showed the letter to Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang was also silent. Nine Raven Empire, he has been there for a long time. This Xiao Guan is still young and impatient. Qin Wushuang sighed. You cannot blame Xiao Guan. He thought that none of his family members were alive. Suddenly, he received news that a little sister is still alive. I'll definitely go and rescue him. Qin Wushuang understood Xiao Guan's impulsiveness very well. If it were him, Qin Wushuang, and something happened to his sister, Qin Xiu, he would definitely risk everything to rescue her. Wushuang, what are you planning to do? Qin Lianshan asked. Father, it's not easy for Xiaoguan. I want to take a look. Anyway, with my current speed, it won't take much time to get to the Nine Raven Empire. In the past, Qin Wushuang would have needed nearly 10 days to travel tens of thousands of miles. Now that Qin Wushuang was already at the profound void martial stage, and with the purple cloud yin yang wings, he could travel tens of thousands of li in a single day. Qin Lianshan did not object. The heavenly royal mansion treated their servants with generosity. Since this Xiaoguan was a servant of the Qin family, of course, he should not ignore it. It's good for you to go. However, Wu Shuang, if you can handle it in a low-key manner, try to do it in a low-key manner. Now, Qin Lianshan was also thinking for his son. There was no need to make too many strong enemies. Qin Wushuang nodded. When he found Murong Su, he was playing with Chengqing with Qin Xiu in the yard. Qin Xiu was telling Murong Su about Qin Wushuang's childhood. Just when she was talking about the duel between Qin Wushuang and that Zhang Xian and the critical moment, Qin Wushuang walked over and laughed. Sis, are you revealing my secrets again? Qin Xiu smiled. Wushuang, isn't this what little sister Su Er likes to hear? Murong Su's handsome face blushed slightly as he said, Brother Qin, don't interrupt, can you let me finish? Qin Wushuang said, Su Er, let's talk about it later, I need to go to the Nine Raven Empire. Go to the Nine Raven Empire again? Didn't we just come back from there? Murong Su was not unfamiliar with the Nine Raven Empire. It was the place where he and Qin Wushuang first met. Su Er, something happened to Xiaoguan. He has no one to rely on in this world. If I don't go, no one will help him. Qin Wushuang explained the situation. Murong Su also had an impression of Xiaoguan. Speaking of which, this Xiaoguan was the matchmaker between her and Qin Wushuang. If Xiaoguan had not been thrown out by someone, Qin Wushuang would not have made a move. Perhaps Murong Su would not have noticed Qin Wushuang, this unique man. Alright, sis, tell me more when we come back. Murong Su giggled. Apparently, she was already familiar with Qin Xiu. The more Qin Xiu looked at this charming sister-in-law, the more she liked her. She laughed. Okay, then go and come back quickly. I will wait for you guys. Chengqing will also wait for you guys. Suddenly, the little guy who was playing on the side also said. After leaving the Bayou country, Qin Wushuang used all his strength to unleash the purple cloud in yang wings and took Murong Su to the Nine Raven Empire. That evening, they arrived at the capital city of the Nine Raven Empire. Along the way, Qin Wushuang had already discussed with Qin Xiu. It would be difficult to find someone without a reason. After all, Xiaoguan had left the heavenly royal mansion for a few months. Therefore, they decided to look for an acquaintance, sect leader Xiao Bailong. Initially, Qin Wushuang had helped him complete a mission for this Xiao Bailong. Thus, he was extremely grateful to Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang had also met Murong Su at Xiao Bailong's restaurant. Thus, Xiao Bailong could be counted as their mutual friend. Qin Wushuang went straight to the Iron Fan Gate. Since he had been here a few times, naturally, he was familiar with the place. Soon, he had arrived near the Iron Fan Gate. With Qin Wushuang's current strength, clearly, these disciples of the Iron Fan Gate could not discover his whereabouts. After a few years, this Xiao Bailong had gotten rid of that sore point in his heart and had made the Iron Fan Gate flourish. Naturally, it would be effortless for an elite warrior at the void martial stage to enter this place. Like the wind, Qin Wushuang arrived at the core area of the Iron Fan Gate with Murong Su. At this moment, Xiao Bailong was in the backyard, cultivating alone. Suddenly, he felt a gust of wind blowing before him. Instantly, a small cluster of bamboo forest emitted a rustling sound. This gust of wind that had appeared out of nowhere made Xiao Bailong feel slightly surprised. But when he focused his gaze, there was nothing. While he was feeling suspicious, suddenly, some vague shadows appeared before the bamboo forest. Next, two shadows slowly became clear. The two figures took a step forward. Finally, Xiao Bailong realized that someone had come to visit. However, the strength of this uninvited guest had clearly surpassed Xiao Bailong's understanding. What kind of method was this? To martial artists at the spiritual martial force, the divine skills of the void martial stage had indeed surpassed their understanding. Qin Wushuang smiled lightly. Head Xiao, I trust you have been well since we last met? After not seeing you for a few years, you have become more graceful than before? In these years, Xiao Bailong had also made some progress. However, at this moment, he was both surprised and suspicious. He looked at this person before him. Like a gust of wind, he was faintly discernible. He could not be sure whether this was a person or a ghost talking to him. Like a wave, the shadow of this void martial stage swayed and made the image appear extremely strange. While Xiao Bailong was surprised, he also realized that this voice sounded familiar. Head Xiao, it's true that an eminent person has short memories. Could it be you have forgotten in the past? You are. Xiao Bailong had already remembered that this person before him was the elite warrior that had helped him kill that traitor. Initially, Xiao Bailong had called Qin Wushuang Mr. Later on, he had learned that the Mr. he had mentioned was in fact the world-famous Qin Wushuang. Now, as he connected the dots, he could not help but feel somewhat dazed. You are young Master Qin? Qin Wushuang laughed. I didn't expect that my identity could not be hidden from you. Xiao Bailong let out a long sigh of relief. Since it was an old acquaintance, then this person did not have any ill intentions. Initially, he had also respected Qin Wushuang greatly and had never lost his manners. It really is young Master Qin. I have never forgotten your great kindness in the past. I only learned of your identity later on and never had the opportunity to visit you. Xiao Bailong spoke politely. Inwardly, he was also shocked. He knew that this Qin Wushuang was no longer the same as before. Most likely, he had reached the void martial stage. You are too polite, Head Xiao. I'm sure you know the purpose of my visit, right? Qin Wushuang did not beat around the bush. Since he was worried about Xiao Guan's safety, of course, he went straight to the point. Xiao Bailong was not unfamiliar with Xiao Guan. When Qin Wushuang had entered the dispersed praying mountain, Xiao Guan had stayed at Xiao Bailong's place. If Xiao Guan had truly returned to the Nine Raven Empire, it would be impossible for Xiao Bailong's network in the Nine Raven Empire to be in the dark. Xiao Bailong was stunned. Then, he realized that this young Master Qin was not a person that liked to beat around the bush. At the moment, he did not hide and nodded. You should have come for Xiao Guan, right? Yes, indeed, Head Xiao is a straightforward person. Qin Wushuang appreciated this point as he asked with a smile. Head Xiao is an elite warrior of the Nine Raven Empire. I only have one question, did Xiao Guan come here? Before Qin Wushuang, Xiao Bailong no longer had the capital to lie. There was no need for him to do so. Indeed, he came here. Xiao Bailong nodded and then explained, Young Master Qin, you will not blame me for not caring about this matter, right? Qin Wushuang said lightly, It's not your fault. You had taken Xiao Guan in for a period of time, you were already grateful. Xiao Guan is not related to you, it's understandable that you did not get involved. Xiao Bailong shook his head with shame and gave a long sigh. Young Master Qin, honestly, it's not like I didn't try. However, this time, Xiao Guan had not only offended a marquis of the secular world. This time, he had hit an iron plate. Iron plate? Qin Wushuang smiled lightly and did not express his opinion. He could not think of any iron plate to speak of in the human countries. Xiao Bailong saw Qin Wushuang's expression and immediately knew that he had made a mistake. He hurriedly explained, Of course, if young Master Qin wants to stand up for Xiao Guan, that iron plate is just a thin layer of paper that can be broken with a poke. Qin Wushuang waved his hand. Head Xiao, I wonder, who did Xiao Guan offend? Xiao Bailong wanted to say something but stopped. It was obvious that Xiao Guan's enemy this time made him not dare to say it easily. This was human nature. After all, Xiao Bailong was not an elite warrior in the Nine Raven Empire. There were always people that could not be offended. However, after thinking about it, he still said, this time, he offended someone with great power in the Nine Raven Temple. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 622. The Nine Raven Temple? If it were a few years ago, to Qin Wushuang these 4 words would have been a tall mountain. However, ever since he had entered the Xian Yuan Mound, the Nine Raven Temple had given him the highest reception. With his current cultivation, no one in the Nine Raven Temple would be able to stop him from doing anything he wanted. Of course, Qin Wushuang would not use his strength to suppress the Nine Raven Temple. He had always done things with reason and evidence. He would take responsibility for his own actions, and he would only look for Xiao Guan's enemies. Qin Wushuang did not make things difficult for Xiao Bailong. He knew that it would be difficult for Xiao Bailong to report the name of the other party. However, since this grudge was still related to that Marquis Fei, there was a perpetrator for every grievance and a debtor for every debt. He would go to that Marquis Fei's mansion and follow the clues to find the mastermind. Immediately, he nodded and said to Xiao Bailong, Head Xiao, if that's the case, sorry for disturbing you today. Sect Master Xiao, please continue. Just pretend that I never came today. After he had finished speaking, he exchanged a glance with Murong Su. Then, the two of them turned around and disappeared like a breeze. Xiao Bailong was dumbstruck as he stared blankly at the sky. He could not regain his senses for a while. Inwardly, he was extremely annoyed that he seemed to be too reserved. The more he thought about it, the more he regretted it. What was there to be reserved about? If he had told young Master Qin who the mastermind was, of course he would have gone to find him. Could he have known that I was the one who told on him? He had missed such a good opportunity to curry favor with him. Xiao Bailong wanted to slap himself as his intestines turned green with regret. Since this young Master Qin came to find me immediately, it proves that he thinks highly of me. I hate that I was blinded by greed and fooled around with him. I am so stupid. For sure, young Master Qin is a super elite warrior at the Void Martial stage. I had missed a good opportunity with an elite warrior at the Void Martial stage, darn it. Now, Xiao Bailong even had the heart to die. It would have been all right if he had lost a good opportunity. Now, he was more afraid that Qin Wushuang would hold a grudge against the Iron Fangate and him. That would be even worse. Thinking of Qin Wushuang's ghost-like skills and his ability to come and go like the wind, Xiao Bailong felt frustrated and frustrated. He knew that he had just done the stupidest thing in history. When Qin Wushuang and Murong Su left the Iron Fangate, they were not angry. Murong Su said with a light voice, It seems this head Xiao is a timid person. Qin Wushuang laughed. In this world, being independent is also a way to protect yourself. Xiao Bailong, Xiao, Qin Wushuang, Xiao. While they were, Xiao Wushuang's Marquis Xiao. The defense of the Iron Fangate was much stronger than this mansion, as Qin Wushuang could enter and leave freely. This Marquis mansion was only a marquis of the secular royal family. Naturally, it could not be compared to a martial arts sect like the Iron Fangate. That seemingly defensive wall was useless. Soon, Qin Wushuang had determined the core area of the Marquis mansion based on the characteristics of the defense. Following the vine to the melon, he had arrived before Marquis Fei's house. Now it was deep into the night. Qin Wushuang said to Murong Su, Su wait for me outside. He was only afraid that if the two of them bumped into Marquis Fei's room, it would be awkward if that Marquis Fei was doing something indecent. Murong Su was exceptionally smart. She smiled shyly and floated outside. She sat down in front of a bunch of fake mountains. Withdrawing his body, Qin Wushuang entered Marquis Fei's room. Just as Qin Wushuang had guessed, this Marquis Fei was doing it. And the most lewd thing was that there were a few girls. Qin Wushuang waved his hand lightly. 6 gusts of wind shot out from his hand and extinguished the 6 candles. Marquis Fei was having fun. When the candles were extinguished, he naturally cursed loudly. However, as soon as he cursed, he felt his throat tighten. Then, a large hand squeezed his neck. Marquis Fei screamed. His tongue was sticking out as he struggled with his limbs. With a sweep of his hand, Qin Wushuang had sealed the acupoints of those naked girls. He controlled their spiritual perception and made them lose their consciousness completely. Then, he threw Marquis Fei to the side and dragged a chair over to him. He sat on it and asked indifferently, "Marquis Fei, right? Who are you?" Marquis Fei was a smart person. He knew that if he made a sound, the other party would kill him. Therefore, although he was afraid, he did not scream. Moreover, he knew very well that the other party's cultivation must be very high to be able to enter without alerting the guards. The guards of the mansion would not be able to do anything to the other party. "I don't have time to play dumb with you," Qin Wushuang said coldly. "I'll ask you a question and you'll answer it. If you give a wrong answer or tell a lie, I'll kill one of your family members. If you give 2 wrong answers, I'll kill 10 of your family members. If you give 3 wrong answers, your mansion will be turned into a sea of hellfire." Qin Wushuang's sinister tone caused Marquis Fei to tremble. Although he could not see the other party's face clearly in the dark, his voice and methods clearly showed that the other party was a ruthless person. Moreover, he was very ruthless. He would definitely not joke around with him. Trembling, Marquis Fei said, Hero, please ask. Where is Xiaoguan?" Qin Wushuang asked out of the blue. Marquis Fei's body shook. He immediately understood that this person came for Xiaoguan. With a trembling voice, he asked, "Hero, what is your relationship with Xiaoguan?" Qin Wushuang waved his arm, and that Marquis Fei only felt a gust of cold wind sweeping across his neck. When he touched his head, his hair fell down in droves. "If you say another word of nonsense, the next thing that will fall down will be your head and not your hair." Marquis Fei's body trembled uncontrollably. Ruthless, this was a truly ruthless person. He hurriedly said, "Hero, Xiaoguan was taken away by Deacon Qi." "Who is Deacon Qi?" "He is a deacon of the 9 Raven Temple. He because Xiaoguan killed his son." "Who is his son?" Qin Wushuang was puzzled. "His son is a leader of the 9 Raven Temple in the secular world. You are the one who has a grudge against Xiaoguan, right? What is your relationship with Deacon Qi's son?" It is related. It is because Deacon Qi's son took Xiaoguan's sister and imprisoned her. He used perverted methods to torture her. Xiaoguan was so angry that he killed Deacon Qi's son. Deacon Qi was so angry that he captured Xiaoguan and brought him to the 9 Raven Temple. I don't know if he is still alive. "So, this matter has nothing to do with you?" Qin Wushuang sneered and asked. "It has nothing to do with me. Really, it has nothing to do with me." Marquis Fei only wanted to stay out of this matter. Naturally, he tried his best to defend himself. Qin Wushuang sneered and said, "Whether or not it has anything to do with you, don't think that you can stay out of this matter. Since you said that you went to the 9 Raven Temple, then let's go there." With that, a blanket rolled up and wrapped Marquis Fei's body like a pig and dragged him out. After meeting up with Murong Su, he said, "Let's go to the 9 Raven Temple." The last time they went to the 9 Raven Temple, the journey was very difficult. However, the current Qin Wushuang was not the same as before. He activated the purple cloud yin-yang wings and flew freely in the sky above the 9 Raven abyss. He opened his Dharma eyes and searched with his divine sense. After 1 hour, he locked onto the 9 Raven Temple's floating island. Considering how the 9 Raven Temple treated him last time, Qin Wushuang did not want to be too overbearing. After landing on the floating island, he said to the surrounding disciples of the Nine Raven Empire, "Go and inform your head divinity sect that there is a guest." Although Qin Wushuang did not force his way in, he was an expert. Although he tried his best to suppress his aura, it still brought a strong pressure. The 5 divinity sects were all alarmed. There was no need to inform them. They were all shocked and did not know what kind of disaster was about to befall them. "Your Excellency, who are you? You trespassed into the Nine Raven Temple. Don't you know the rules?" The 5 divinity sects all scolded. On the other hand, the great divinity chief very calmly made a hand gesture, indicating for everyone not to make a sound. He took a step forward and asked with a very respectful tone, "Who are you, and why have you graced my Nine Raven Temple with your presence?" Qin Wushuang did not want to reveal his identity. He changed his tone and said indifferently, "Head divinity sect, may I have a word with you?" After speaking, he strode toward the Nine Raven Abyss. His body was like a swallow that waded through the water as if he was walking on flat ground. The head divinity sect knew that the visitor was not ordinary. He ordered, "The 4 of you get ready. Once you hear my warning, immediately lead all the core disciples to retreat. Do not stay." Head divinity sect, the head divinity sect's tone was very firm. "Say no more. Do as I say. The Nine Raven Temple cannot afford to offend this enemy." The other 4 divinity sects looked at each other in confusion. They did not know what was going on. Why did a super expert suddenly appear? The Nine Raven Temple had always been low-key and kind. They had never offended any powerful figures. Furthermore, in the human kingdom, what kind of expert could the Nine Raven Temple not contend against? The head divinity sect's expression was dejected. Apparently, he was also very helpless. He instructed, "Quickly go and prepare. I will go and meet him. Remember, do not let your emotions affect your decisions." After speaking, he followed the direction Qin Wushuang went and chased after him. "Sir, please wait." The head divinity sect chased for dozens of miles and called out. Qin Wushuang slowly turned his head and said, "Head divinity sect, you are quite fast." The head divinity sect said with a grave expression, "Sir, has the Nine Raven Temple offended you in any way?" Qin Wushuang waved his hand and said, "Head divinity sect, let's cut to the chase. This time, I am only here to ask for one person." "Who?" "Deacon Shi." "Deacon Shi?" The head divinity sect was somewhat confused. Although Deacon Shi's position was not high, he was the nephew of the 4th divinity sect. In the Nine Raven Temple, he could be considered to have connections. He could not help but ask, "Did Deacon Shi offend you?" "Yes, I only want this person." "Head divinity sect, are you going to hand him over?" "If you want to hand him over, there must be a reason, right?" The head divinity sect was not the kind of person who would allow others to trample on him. "When I see Deacon Shi, of course there will be a reason." "No, before there is a reason, I cannot let you capture him." The head divinity sect shook his head. Qin Wushuang sneered and said, "You want me to capture him?" "Head divinity sect, I am using peaceful means before resorting to force, not because I am afraid of the Nine Raven Temple. Instead, I respect your reputation. If I want to use force, not to mention a deacon, even the head divinity sect of the Nine Raven Temple, I can capture him." The head divinity sect was greatly shocked. His eyes emitted a bright light as he sized up Qin Wushuang. A person who dared to say such words would definitely not be a boastful person. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 623. However, for thousands of years, no one had ever threatened the Nine Raven Temple like this in the human countries, although the other party had spoken politely and did not seem to be overbearing. However, as one of the major powerhouses in the human countries, before the rise of the Stargaze Palace, the Nine Raven Temple could be said to be the #1 existence. Of course, they felt somewhat embarrassed when someone came to kill them, especially when the other party claimed to want to capture their divinity chief. "Mister, I do want to know how that butler Chi offended you. How could a little butler like him offend a super elite warrior like you?" Although the head divinity chief did not appear to be weak, his tone was somewhat soft. "Head divinity chief, since you are not willing to hand him over, then I can only say sorry. I hope no one will stop me when I make my move. Or else, I cannot guarantee what will happen." After he had finished speaking, he did not even discuss with the head divinity chief. His figure flashed and the purple cloud in Yang wings flew back to the floating island. Then, he spread out his spiritual perception. Now, all those with some status in the Nine Raven Temple had rushed out. They all gathered at the wide altar square before the temple. Qin Wushuang flapped his wings and lifted that marquee fei in his hand. He said in a low voice, "Open your eyes and look, which one is Butler Qi?" Marquis Fei realized that his body was being lifted in the air. As long as the other party let go slightly, he would fall to the ground and become a pile of mud. At the moment, he did not dare to neglect as he said with a trembling voice, "Mister, the night is too dark, I cannot see clearly at this height. However, that Butler Qi has a cyan birthmark on his face, it's easy to recognize him." Cyan birthmark? Qin Wushuang's spiritual perception became restless. To a secular martial artist like Marquis Fei, this height was indeed high. However, to Qin Wushuang, it did not affect him at all. He glanced around. Indeed, he saw a guy with a cyan birthmark in the crowd. He was dressed in ordinary butler clothing and hid in the crowd. If it were not for this obvious birthmark, Qin Wushuang would have to spend a lot of effort to find him. Everything would be easy once he had locked onto the target. Just as he was about to attack, the great divinity chief behind him quickly arrived. He waved the staff in his hand and swiftly attacked Qin Wushuang. With a flash of light, a majestic aura shot out from the tip of the cane and collided with him. What surprised Qin Wushuang was that the great divinity lord had also broken through the shackles of the spirit martial realm and entered the refined void realm. It was impossible for anyone below the void refinement realm to possess such offensive power. However, in Qin Wushuang's eyes, a martial artist at the voiding realm was no different from a child who had just learned to walk. With a wave of his sleeve, he wrapped up the attacking airflow. With a wave of his hand, the light seemed to have been devoured by some mysterious force and disappeared. Qin Wushuang said indifferently, "Great Divinity Chief, I don't mean to offend you. Attacking the Nine Raven Temple is definitely not a smart choice." After saying that, he shook his sleeves, and an invisible airflow, like a raging wave, suddenly rushed out and pushed forward. This seemingly careless push was shockingly powerful. At first, the great divinity chief thought that he could withstand it. However, when this aura was released, he realized how terrifying the opponent in front of him was. The force of this casual push had already formed an ocean-like aura before it even got close to him, sealing off all his escape routes around him. In an instant, the great divinity chief's body seemed to have been fixed. The airflow from all directions continued to rush over and completely controlled him in a whirlpool that he could not extricate himself from. Qin Wushuang smiled faintly, "Excuse me." With a wave of his arm, the powerful airflow suddenly dispersed. The great divinity chief immediately felt as if the clouds had parted and the moon had been revealed. He wholeheartedly understood what it meant to be suddenly enlightened and what it meant to come back from the jaws of death. "Great Divinity Chief, I have said that I only want one person. Moreover, I have enough reason." The great divinity chief was forced to retreat by Qin Wushuang's attack in the dark night. The people of the Nine Raven Temple did not notice the distress that he had shown. No one knew the extent of the shock inside the great divinity chief's heart. Following Qin Wushuang's casual move, the great divinity chief had completely given up the last trace of hope he had. He knew that if he were to fight recklessly with this person, he would be burying the thousands of years of foundation of the Nine Raven Temple. When Qin Wushuang saw the great divinity chief remaining silent, he did not plan to reveal his identity today. Thus, he could only use this seemingly unfriendly method. If he were to use the identity of Qin Wushuang, perhaps it would not have been this complicated. However, he did not want to use the identity of Qin Wushuang. After all, he was here to ask for someone. If he were to use the identity of Qin Wushuang to forcefully take away that butler Qi, he did not know how the Nine Raven Temple would react. If this Nine Raven Temple was somehow related to some mysterious powerhouse in the Xian Yuan Mound, his whereabouts would be exposed. This was definitely not something Qin Wushuang wanted to see. Qin Wushuang glanced across the sacrificial square with a lightning-like gaze and shouted, "Qi Yutong, get out here." Butler Qi, who was hiding in the crowd, did not know what was going on. Inwardly, he had made up his mind that this matter was not related to him. If a chaotic battle were to break out, he had decided to turn around and run. He never thought that he was the cause of this unexpected calamity at the Nine Raven Temple. When he heard this voice, his entire body twitched and his heart thumped. Inwardly, he wondered how he was related to this. Now I will give you a chance to walk out yourself. When I make a move, don't think about walking with your feet for the rest of your life. Don't look left and right, you will not escape. Qin Wushuang had a panoramic view of all of Qi Yutong's actions. Qi Yutong was greatly surprised that the other party had seen through his little movements. Could it be that he had locked onto his position? Impossible, in this dark night, with so many people, how could he have discovered me alone? Could it be that he was bluffing me? Although he was scared inwardly, he still held onto a fluke mentality. It seems that you do not plan to come out yourself. The few people around Qi Yutong, you had better stay away from him if you do not want to be implicated. The people around Qi Yutong did not usually get along with Qi Yutong, and they despised Qi Yutong's character. At this moment, when they heard what the other party said, they subconsciously moved away. In this way, Qi Yutong was immediately highlighted. Qi Yutong stood in the crowd, not knowing what to do. He still did not know what had happened. Why did the other party single him out? Very good. Now, do you still need me to go down and drag you out? Qin Wushuang saw that the surrounding people had dispersed and sneered. It seems that you are not very popular. When Qi Yutong thought that his uncle was the fourth divine lord of the divine temple, although he was afraid, he was not hysterical. He pretended to be calm and asked, "Who are you?" "I, Qi Yutong, don't seem to have any enmity with you." Qi Yutong thought about it repeatedly and felt that he had not offended any expert at all. Thus, he still felt somewhat lucky that the other party had found the wrong person. Qin Wushuang smiled lightly. "Very good, you are Qi Yutong, right?" "Yes. Yes, it's me. What do you want?" Qi Yutong appeared to be full of confidence. "What do I want?" Suddenly, Qin Wushuang's figure dived down and transformed into a burst of meteoric light towards Qi Yutong. Like a shooting star chasing after the moon, his speed was extremely fast. "Yutong, back off." Regardless, the fourth divine lord was Qi Yutong's uncle. He would not watch Qi Yutong get killed like this. With a flash, he came to rescue him. The head divine lord immediately flashed over and pulled the fourth divine lord away. He shouted, "Fourth, don't be rash." The fourth divine lord was stunned. "Head divine lord, what are you doing? He wants to kill my nephew." The head divine lord's eyes dimmed as he shook his head. "Don't be impulsive." While he spoke, Qi Yutong had already been picked up by Qin Wushuang like a little chick and flew into the sky. Morong Su received him in the sky and both flew away. The fourth divine lord gave a loud roar and was about to give chase. The head divine lord grabbed him. "Fourth, you still don't understand? This person is at least an elite warrior at the transformation void martial stage. No one can defeat him. To be able to fly in the sky, the transformation void martial stage was the lowest estimate. The head Divine Lord was an elite warrior at the refined void martial stage and knew the void martial stage well. After all, the fourth Divine Lord was only at the perfect stage and did not know much about the void martial stage. He still shouted, "Head Divine Lord, my nephew was taken away by him." The head Divine Lord said with a cold tone, "Even if he took me away, you guys cannot chase after him. This person does not show strong hostility. If he is truly angered, no one in the 9 Raven Temple can resist. Tonight, he wants to slaughter the 9 Raven Temple. We can't do anything about it." Everyone felt apprehensive inwardly as they looked at the disappearing figure in the night sky with disbelief. Each of their eyes revealed extreme fear. "Just who is this person?" "Yes, Head Divine Lord, who is he?" The Head Divine Lord sighed helplessly. "If I knew who he was, I would not be so confused. Most likely, he is an elite warrior from the forbidden spiritual zones." As soon as he said these words, even the fourth Divine Lord who was eager to save his nephew became discouraged. Forbidden spiritual zones? That was not someone he could afford to offend. He was from the forbidden spiritual zones? On the face of the head Divine Lord, there was a trace of lingering fear. Others might not know, but since he had just escaped from death, he had experienced the strength of that person. If the other party had truly shown hostility, he would already be a cold corpse. How could he still speak here? "Fourth, just who did your nephew offend?" The head Divine Lord gave a long sigh. Apparently, he was also confused. With Chi Yutong's little strength, he was not qualified to offend an elite warrior at that level. How come the other party had come with such ferocious momentum to capture a small fry? Regardless of how they looked at it, they felt that this matter was filled with strange meanings. However, besides being at a loss, they could not do anything. How depressing, it's almost 21 o'clock, and I'm still far away from the monthly votes of the 4th watch period. Everyone, please understand Old Bull, haha. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 624. Qin Wushuang's original intention was to search for Xiao Guan. He did not have much of an opinion about the 9 Raven Temple. After all, no matter what sect it was, there would always be a few scums. The 9 Raven Temple had always had a good reputation. Therefore, Qin Wushuang did not plan to vent his anger on the 9 Raven Temple. Even if Xiao Guan was killed by Chi Yutong, he would not vent his anger on the 9 Raven Temple. He would only pursue the primary responsibility. However, anyone who was implicated in this matter had to die. This was Qin Wushuang's bottom line and principle. If one could not even protect one's family and friends, what was the point of cultivating? Chi Yutong was lifted up in the air by Qin Wushuang like a little chick. Only a belt was keeping him alive. If the belt wasn't sturdy enough, then he would have to sacrifice his own life. If he fell from a height of several thousand feet, he would definitely end up as a pile of mud. There was no other possibility. Qin Wushuang obviously wanted to torture Chi Yutong's nerves. He saw that Chi Yutong's eyes were flickering, and he knew that he was a cunning fellow. If this kind of person was treated pleasantly, he would definitely climb up the ladder. As long as this kind of person was intimidated and scared out of his wits, it would be easier to interrogate him. Therefore, Qin Wushuang dragged Chi Yutong in the air like he was flying a kite. He let Chi Yutong experience what it was like to play with his heart. Chi Yutong wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf. He was really scared out of his wit. Looking at the boundless bottom below, unless he was retarded, it was impossible for him not to be afraid. After tormenting him for a while, Qin Wushuang descended from the cloud and landed on an isolated island. He threw Chi Yutong on the ground. Chi Yutong only felt that his entire body was like mud. He was so scared that even his bones had turned soft. His face was pale as he lay on the ground in despair. He panted heavily and looked at Qin Wushuang with fear. Qin Wushuang asked indifferently, "Do you still want to play?" Chi Yutong wailed, "Senior, don't play anymore. I can't afford to play anymore. I have a bad heart." "Senior, how did this lowly one offend you? Please tell me and I'll slap myself. Isn't it good to slap myself?" After he finished speaking, he slapped his face. Needless to say, Chi Yutong was a ruthless person. He did not hesitate to slap himself in the face. Moreover, the strength he used was not fake at all. Every slap was real. He didn't dare to fake it. If he didn't act pitiful now, he would be courting death. Qin Wushuang looked at Chi Yutong as if he was looking at a clown. Murong Su also found it strange. How could this person be so spineless and belittle himself? "Come on, don't act here. Your trick won't work. Why don't you take a look at who this person is?" Qin Wushuang said as he tossed out Marquis Fei. Chi Yutong hurriedly looked and vaguely recognized him. This is a member of the Nine Raven Empire's royal family, right? Don't you know why I'm looking for you? Qin Wushuang's voice suddenly became stern. His gaze was like lightning as he stared at Chi Yutong's face. Chi Yutong's body twitched. Shao family? You're not that stupid, Qin Wushuang said coldly. This Pei guy said that you captured someone from the Shao family. I think that person has already been killed by you, right? In that case, do the math yourself. There are 2 Shao siblings in total. If you want 1 life, use 10 of your family's lives to pay for it. Do the math. How many lives do you need to pay for it? 1 life in exchange for 10 lives, that would be 20 lives. Even if Chi Yutong's descendants were added together, there would not be more than 20. His body trembled. Only then did he realize the other party's intention. The Shao siblings? Oh no. Chi Yutong thought of a terrifying possibility, and his body twitched uncontrollably. Qin Wushuang saw this and felt a chill in his heart. In that case they were really killed by you. Chi Yutong, you'll be the first burial object. Chi Yutong hurriedly shouted, Wait! They're not dead yet. Qin Wushuang forcibly stopped the attack that he had accumulated power for. Not dead? Do you know the consequences of lying to me? Chi Yutong hurriedly begged, It's true. I'm not lying to you. I imprisoned them in the water dungeon. Maybe they're not dead. I just want to torture them to avenge my son. I'll bring you to them now. Qin Wushuang did not waste any time and directly dragged Chi Yutong into his hand. Show me the way. You know that if you lie to me, the number of lives to pay for it will be more than 20. Chi Yutong could only pray to the heavens that the Shao siblings could hold on and not die too early. Otherwise, it would really be over. Under Chi Yutong's guidance, they soon arrived at an isolated island where the Shao siblings were imprisoned. This isolated island was developed as a prison. From the outside, one could not see any clues at all. After entering the isolated island, one had to pass through layers of secret passages before entering the underground prison. The moment Qin Wushuang landed on the island, he spread out his divine sense to search. Thankfully, although the 2 weak auras were already at the point of exhaustion, they were still stubbornly holding on. Arriving at the underground water dungeon, the 2 bodies soaked in the water dungeon. Their skin was already pale. Their auras were very weak, almost like they were hanging on by a thread. But even so, Xiao Guan still tried his best to support his sister's body along the walls of the water dungeon, letting his sister's body soak less in the water. However, Xiao Guan's physique was still considered good. The situation of the sister in his hands was slightly worse than Xiao Guan's. Hearing the noise outside the water dungeon, Xiao Guan cursed, Chi Yutong, you traitor, you'll die a horrible death. You scum, you're simply tarnishing the 9 Raven Temple. If you have the guts, kill this young master with 1 slash. Chiyutong could not even protect himself now. He was very afraid that Xiao Guan would die. Hearing him curse, he relaxed instead and let out a long sigh of relief. How could he still care about being scolded? Qin Wushuang did not even look at this water dungeon. He directly smashed all the restrictions with one palm, emptying all the water in the water dungeon. Xiao Guan's feet were weak, but he still stubbornly held on to the young girl in his arms. You! Who are you? Why did you save me? Xiao Guan was somewhat shocked. How could he not see that the other party was clearly saving him? Qin Wushuang sighed and said, Xiao Guan, you're too impulsive. When Xiao Guan heard Qin Wushuang's voice, instantly, waves of radiance emerged from his pale face. Young master, is that you? Qin Wushuang nodded. Quickly come out. At least you're not late. Xiao Guan was overjoyed, but he could not care about being happy at this time. He knelt in front of Qin Wushuang. Young master, please be merciful and save my sister. She can't hold on much longer. There was no problem at all in saving someone. Qin Wushuang did not take out a particularly powerful medicinal pill. He only took out an ordinary 9 reversal yang pill. This thing was enough. With Xiao Guan's sister's physique, he still needed to inject spiritual power to help her digest this ordinary 9 reversal yang pill. Otherwise, the medicinal effect would not be effective at all. This 9 reversal yang pill was an ordinary item to profound void realm experts, but to a mortal like Xiao Guan's sister, it was no different from a miracle medicine. The medicinal effect took effect, and the young girl's face immediately became rosy. Not long after, her breathing became smooth and calm. Although she was still unconscious, it was obvious that she was fine. Only then did Xiao Guan's worry turn into joy. He shed tears of gratitude. Young master, you saved me again. Xiao Guan, get up. It's good that you're fine. These two people are your great enemies. Do as you deem fit. When Xiao Guan saw Prince Fei and Chiyutong, it was as if he had met his enemies. His whole body trembled, and he asked hoarsely, Young master, are you leaving it to me? You don't want to? Qin Wushuang tugged at Murong Su's sleeve, indicating for him to leave. Murong Su smiled and walked out with Qin Wushuang. 2 screams could be heard from inside. Xiao Guan had clearly gotten rid of the 2 enemies. Not long after, Xiao Guan walked out with his sister in his arms. Young master, thank you. Really, thank you. Towards the end, Xiao Guan was already choking with emotions. He originally thought that he was dead for sure this time. He was not afraid of death, but when he thought about how his younger sister was young and had to die with him, he felt distressed. Moreover, he had not taken revenge for his family, and his enemies were still at large. Every time he thought of this, he resented the unfairness of the heavens for not distinguishing between good and evil. At this moment, he could see the light of day again and kill his 2 great enemies in an instant. How could this not make him feel excited? How could he not be grateful? Xiao Guan, a man doesn't cry easily. He bleeds but doesn't shed tears. Qin Wushuang joked. Young master, don't say anything. What do you plan to do next? Return to the Qin clan or stay at the 9 Raven Empire? Make your own choice, I will not force you. Xiao Guan said without hesitation. Of course I will follow you back to the Qin clan. Young master, I said that I will work like an ox or a horse to repay you. Yes, then let's prepare. We will return to the Qin clan now. We should also end the grudge here, right? Yes, old Pei was the main culprit. Since he is dead, we have taken revenge. The other accomplices all listened to old Pei's orders. It doesn't matter if we kill them or not. Now, Xiao Guan had seen through it all. It would be best if the people that were alive were fine. During these days, the little sister that he had lost and regained had allowed him to understand many life principles. Finally, the storm that had caused the 9 Raven Temple to be alarmed had calmed down. Only when Qin Wushuang and his friends had left the Nine Raven Abyss did those divinity sects of the Nine Raven Temple feel a sense of relief after surviving a calamity. At that moment they almost thought that they were doomed. Unexpectedly, the other party had left so easily. Although Qi Yutong had lost his life, everyone did not know whether they should mourn or rejoice inwardly. Regardless, the Nine Raven Temple had been saved. After leaving the Nine Raven Temple, Qin Wushuang did not linger and returned to the Bayou country quickly. It only took him 2 days to go and come back. When Xiao Guan returned to the heavenly royal mansion, he felt as if he had received a new life. And the heavenly royal mansion was also bustling with noise and excitement. Guests from all over the Bayou country had come to visit. Of course, Qin Wushuang could not participate. He took Murong Su to wander around the Great Song Mountains and enjoyed this rare peace. He knew that to him, this peace was a temporary luxury. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 625. Big Brother Qin, this Great Song Mountain is truly beautiful. Far away from the battles and killings, I really like this place. Big Brother Qin, how good would it have been if I had known you when you were young? Qin Wushuang smiled. That feeling might not have been as good as it is now. Qin Wushuang thought about it. Before he had transmigrated to this world, the original owner of this body did not have any extraordinary traits. Most likely, Su Er would not have liked it that much. How could that be? Big Brother Qin, I will definitely like you. For an upright gentleman like you, no matter where I am, I will like you a lot. Haha, upright gentleman? Su Er, am I worthy of these words? Of course, Big Brother Qin, I think you are worthy. Murong Su looked at Qin Wushuang seriously. There was no other meaning in her eyes. This was a compliment from the bottom of her heart. Qin Wushuang sighed. Su Er, my hands are stained with so much blood and I have created so many killings. I am afraid it would be difficult to say that I am a gentleman. However, I do not regret it. I do things with a clear conscience. I am worthy of the blue dome of heaven and my conscience. Yes, Big Brother Qin, don't think too much. In the Tian Xian land you fight and I kill. It is impossible to not create a killing calamity. As long as the starting point is not to commit evil, then it is the action of a gentleman. Murong Su knew how to comfort Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang pulled Murong Su's hand and came to the cave in the second circle of the 7 deadly arrays formation. Murong Su felt rather surprised. Big Brother Qin, I didn't expect there to be such a cave in the depths of this cliff. It is quite big. Did you develop it? Qin Wushuang said with a smile. Su Er, this is the most important reason why I brought you here today. I wasn't the one who dug this cave. Speaking of it, this cave has a great history. So far, no one knows all the secrets of this cave, including me. Including you? Murong Su blinked her eyes and raised her beautiful eyebrows. She looked indescribably beautiful. Qin Wushuang nodded. Su Er, I once told you that I was able to rise from a small place like the human countries, stand out from the human countries, and contend against the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, all because of the fortuitous opportunities brought to me by this mountain cave. Qin Wushuang didn't hide anything. Looking at Murong Su's somewhat puzzled expression, he told him about his fortuitous encounter in the 7 deadly arrays formation. Murong Su listened as if she was intoxicated and fascinated. Murong Su found the new opportunities that came with each breakthrough very interesting. And when it came to the thrilling part, Murong Su couldn't help but grab Qin Wushuang's arm tightly. Although she knew that Qin Wushuang was fine, she was still extremely nervous, and her little heart was beating wildly. Until Qin Wushuang had finished speaking, Murong Su slowly regained her senses. She gave a long sigh of relief. Brother Qin, this way, you have only explored the 4th circle of this 7 deadly arrays formation? Yes, the fifth circle is at the endless Eastern Sea. For now, I don't plan to go. Qin Wushuang knew that he must go to the endless Eastern Sea. Yet, not now. Although he had already reached the minimum requirement of going to the endless Eastern Sea, the profound void martial stage, Murong Su felt as if she had drunk honey. Not only did she feel happy, she also felt a sense of responsibility. Brother Qin did not share the secrets of the 7 deadly arrays formation with anyone else. She was the first human to know this secret. This was enough to explain her position in Brother Qin's heart. Although Brother Qin had chosen to hide it from the others, his intentions were good. However, to be the first to share this secret with Qin Wushuang, Murong Su had a reason to be happy. Brother Qin, those elite warriors you sent to escort me back to the floating snow house, you said they were all spiritual beasts. They are the spiritual beasts inside the sealed scrolls, right? Qin Wushuang nodded. Yes, these 12 sealed spiritual beasts are also the trump card that allowed me to deal with the heavenly Luo Daoist sect. Since he had decided to share these secrets with Murong Su, of course he would not hide anything. He also firmly believed that Murong Su would keep this secret. Brother Qin, it seems that it's not only Su Er that has taken a fancy to you. The gods have also taken a fancy to you. Or else, how could they have bestowed you with such fortune? Murong Su felt extremely proud. So what if there were so many elite warriors and exceptional young people in the Xianyuan Mound? The 7 deadly arrays formation still chose Brother Qin. Murong Su was exceptionally intelligent. Of course, she knew that this 7 deadly arrays formation was extraordinary. Brother Qin had only entered the 4th circle, and he had already encountered so many fortuitous opportunities. There were still 3 more circles. For sure, the improvement of each circle would be tremendous. Thus, she had reason to believe that one day, her brother Qin would become the peak of the Tian Xian land. Although Murong Su did not have such ambition, she had such premonition. After these two had shared this secret, their hearts had become much closer. After staying at the heavenly royal mansion for half a month, Qin Wushuang was finally ready to depart for the Stargaze Palace. Before leaving, Qin Wushuang took out 2 communication jade plates. He gave one to his father and the other to his brother-in-law, De Shi Ming. As Qin Lianshan had expected, De Shi Ming's family had shown extreme interest in Chengqing's entry into the forbidden spiritual zone. Not only did they not object, they had greatly approved of it. This was to be expected. The glory of being able to establish a relationship with the forbidden lands of God was simply beyond their imagination. Being the head of the family, it was impossible for De Shi Heng to be so stupid. This time, Qin Wushuang knew the reason why Qin Lianshan had decided not to go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Before ancestor Qin Yu's remains could enter the sacrificial valley, his father would not go. This was an invisible encouragement to Qin Wushuang. The marriage between Qin Wushuang and Murong Su was not urgent. Thus, for the time being, Qin Lianshan did not have to go to the Xianyuan Mound. Qin Wushuang had made a promise with his father that if he made any strange movements at the Xianyuan Mound, their entire family would immediately regroup with the 5 palace masters at the Stargaze Palace and enter the endless Eastern Sea to hide. It was better to be safe than sorry. For many things, Qin Wushuang had to be on guard. Although the Heavenly Emperor had given clear orders. However, he must be on guard against some secret methods. Although Chengqing was young, he knew that this time, the place his uncle was taking him to was extraordinary. He did not cry and started to comfort Qin Xiu like a little adult. "Mommy, Chengqing will wait for you guys at the Xianyuan Mound, don't cry." While wiping her tears, Qin Xiu instructed, "Chengqing, when you go there, you must listen to your uncle and don't be lazy." After reluctantly saying goodbye, Qin Wushuang took Chengqing to the Stargaze Palace. The reconstruction of the Stargaze Palace was already proceeding in an orderly manner. The Dragon and Tiger sect was smart. Before the 1-month deadline was up after they had been warned by Qin Wushuang, the 5 leaders of the Dragon and Tiger sect came to the Stargaze Palace to kowtow and admit their guilt. Of course, the Stargaze Palace would not let this matter go. They punished the Dragon and Tiger sect ruthlessly and sacrificed the murderers of the Stargaze Palace to the souls of those who had died. Among them, it included many core disciples and elders of the Dragon and Tiger sect. After this setback, the Dragon and Tiger sect could not recover from this setback and no longer had the ability to harbor any other thoughts. Not only did the Stargaze Palace regain their position as the Eastern Overlord, they also intimidated those restless powerhouses across the entire human countries. Without a doubt, they had become the #1 overlord in the human countries. Even the 9 Raven Temple and the Emperor Buddha Palace had to admit the position of the Stargaze Palace. After all, the Stargaze Palace had 2 elite warriors at the refined Void Martial stage. They also had a few elite warriors at the perfect stage, from the palace masters to the protectors, as well as the elders and core disciples. Each of them had advanced by leaps and bounds. Although they had lost a large group of disciples last time, the 9 Raven Temple and the Emperor Buddha Palace had no choice but to concede defeat due to the absolute advantage their core power held in the human countries. Naturally, Qin Wushuang was overjoyed when he saw this situation. He made another agreement with the 5 palace masters and still used the same strategy as before. If there were any dangers, they would not resist them and would enter the endless Eastern Sea to hide. After leaving the human countries, Qin Wushuang went to the dispersed Praying Mountain to meet with Bao Bao, Lone and the others. Then, he returned to the Xian Yuan Mound. Along the way, he did not speak a word. Since leaving the Xian Yuan Mound last time, Qin Wushuang had returned to the aspiring Throne Mountain in a little more than half a year. He kept an unusually low profile, and not many people knew he had left. At such a young age, it was the first time Chingqing had left home. Yet, he was able to endure it and never complained along the way. Even if he missed his father and mother, he only missed them inwardly and never showed it on his face. His personality made Qin Wushuang feel extremely gratified. This little guy had such determination and endurance at such a young age. For sure, he was a talent that could be nurtured. Even Murong Su felt that this little nephew was extremely sensible and clever. Along the way, this little guy also kept calling out uncle, aunt, which made Murong Su feel sweet inwardly. When he returned to the aspiring Throne Mountain, Qin Wushuang went to visit 3rd Chief Qin Chongyang immediately. When Qin Chongyang saw that Qin Wushuang had returned safely, he was also overjoyed. When he saw that Qin Wushuang had brought another child, he could not help but feel somewhat strange. After Qin Wushuang explained, Qin Chongyang's expression became serious. He looked at the 4 or 5-year-old little guy and said seriously, "Wushuang, since Chengqing is your nephew, he shares the same bloodline as you. Let's take him to test his talent. Don't let him be another Qin Wushuang, ha ha ha." Currently, the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan did not lack people, yet they were jealous of the lack of up-and-coming talents. For the gigantic Qin clan, they had managed such a large territory. However, the lack of talent was extremely serious. The lack of good seedlings was an old problem that had troubled the Qin clan for a few hundred years. It forced them to dig out new talents from different branches. The process of the test was not complicated. Qin Wushuang had participated in the entire process. He stood outside a yard and waited for Qin Chongyang to tell him the result. In fact, Qin Wushuang was feeling somewhat nervous. Even when he had participated in the martial arts student competition for the first time, he had never felt nervous. When he participated in the martial arts student competition, he had a card up his sleeve. However, for Chengqing's talent test, he had no confidence. After a moment, Qin Chongyang came out from the inside. He walked in a hurry. When he saw Qin Wushuang, the smile on his face became even more pronounced. He greeted him with a smile. Good kid, Wu Shuang, what treasures did you use to nurture this kid? He has great talent. Even at the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan, he is at least a talent that appears once every 50 years. Nice, this kid must be nurtured well from a young age. Little one, would you like to be my direct disciple? As soon as he asked this question, instantly, Qin Wushuang did not know whether to laugh or cry. Ching to be the direct disciple of the third chief? Wouldn't this seniority be messed up? To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 626. Apparently, Qin Chongyang was not joking. From his expression, he was taking it seriously. It seemed that Chengqing's result of this talent test was impressive. Or else, how could Chengqing, a disciple with a different surname, gain Qin Chongyang's favor? Besides, Chengqing was only 4 or 5 years old. It was a great honor for him to gain Qin Chongyang's approval. Wu Shuang, you are reluctant? You want to leave your little nephew to be your disciple? Qin Chongyang asked with a chuckle. Of course not, with my current skills, how could I teach any disciple? I am just happy for Chengqing. Now, Qin Wushuang's joy came from the bottom of his heart. Yes, Wushuang, no one knows you brought Chengqing here, right? Suddenly, Qin Chongyang asked thoughtfully. No, third chief, what's wrong? Qin Wushuang was somewhat confused. Qin Chongyang waved his hand and motioned Qin Wushuang not to be nervous. He laughed. I want to take this child as my disciple, but for now, I don't want to expose his relationship with you. This Chengqing, just treat him as a child I brought back from my trip. You two, uncle and nephew, do not recognize each other at the aspiring Throne Mountain. Wushuang, do you understand my intention? Qin Wushuang thought for a moment and nodded. I understand. Third chief's starting point is to protect Chengqing, and at the same time, to protect Wushuang. Indeed, as Qin Wushuang had guessed, Qin Chongyang's action was firstly to protect Chengqing and not let too many people pay attention to his identity. On the other hand, it was to protect Qin Wushuang and not let others feel that Qin Wushuang was receiving preferential treatment everywhere. It would cause unnecessary jealousy. When Qin Chongyang saw Qin Wushuang had understood immediately, he also felt extremely gratified. Wushuang, for Chengqing you should inform him. I see that child is very mischievous, he should be able to understand. Qin Wushuang also knew that Chengqing was a little adult. If he were to reason with him, he would listen. Perhaps, he could only let this child suffer a little. A man should suffer some hardships. Suffering from a young age would definitely be a wealth for growth. No matter how talented they were, they had all walked out of suffering. Chengqing really listened to Qin Wushuang's words. After listening to Qin Wushuang's explanation, the child nodded seriously. Uncle, I understand. You want me to pretend that I don't know you in front of others? Don't let others guess our relationship, right? Chengqing, you're very smart. It's not that I don't recognize you. Uncle is afraid that others will find out that you are Uncle's nephew and deliberately target you. Uncle has a lot of enemies. Do you understand, Chengqing? Chengqing continued to nod. I understand. But Uncle, you have to come and see me when you're free. Uncle is Chengqing's only relative here. Qin Wushuang caressed the little guy's head and laughed. Don't worry, the people of the Qin clan are your family. As long as you enter the aspiring Throne Mountain, your fellow disciples are your family. Of course, their uncle was closer than them. Chengqing, don't worry, with the third chief taking you as his disciple, it will not be easy for others to bully you. Uncle, I am not afraid of others bullying me. When I grow up, I will beat whoever bullies me. The little guy shook his fist and said seriously. Qin Wushuang smiled and reminded him. Little one, remember my words. A man must take responsibility from a young age. Now that you are taken as the final disciple of the third chief, You are not only representing yourself, but also your parents, your relatives, your teacher. In the distant, you are also representing the entire Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. Chengqing nodded seriously. Uncle, Chengqing understands. Don't worry, I am not afraid of hardships or tiredness. I will never embarrass everyone. Don't look at how young this little guy was. He was clever, strange, and extremely sensible. He was much more mature than ordinary children of his age. This also made Qin Wushuang feel incredibly reassured. To Chengqing, it was indeed a great opportunity to be taken in as a disciple by a major figure like Qin Chongyang. Although Murong Su was already Qin Wushuang's fiancée, she could not follow Qin Wushuang into the ascending dragon slope. It was because that area belonged to the core disciples of the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan. After all, Murong Su was still a disciple of the floating snow house. Therefore, unless Murong Su had completed her marriage with Qin Wushuang, she would not be qualified to visit the ascending dragon slope. Therefore, although Murong Su was at the aspiring Throne Mountain, she was arranged to stay in the guest house. Of course, for a major sect like the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan, the construction of the guest house was also exquisite. Murong Su knew that her father would visit soon. Therefore, she decided to stay at the aspiring Throne Mountain to wait for her father's visit. From the bottom of her heart, she also hoped that the floating snow house would form an alliance with the Qin clan. When Qin Wushuang returned to the ascending dragon slope, he concentrated on training each day. When he had free time, he would visit Murong Su. The two of them treated each other with courtesy and enjoyed a joyous and harmonious relationship. This was also the most leisurely time for Qin Wushuang since he had stepped onto the path of martial arts. During this time, Qin Wushuang did not stay idle as he worked hard to consolidate the stage of the profound void martial stage. Currently, he missed the rich spiritual qi from the ley lines of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Unfortunately, that kind of thing could only be encountered by luck. Even after another 100 years, most likely he would not encounter such a good thing again. That sky-pilfered pill had always been inside Qin Wushuang's body. Thus, Qin Wushuang was not in a rush to refine it. Qin Wushuang was also extremely rational. Under the situation where he could work hard, he did not wish to use external power to achieve a breakthrough. To his long-term training plan, it would not be a good thing. Therefore, for the time being, he did not want to refine that sky-pilfered pill. Unless it was necessary after a critical situation, he would only consider refining it. Unwittingly, half a year had passed. It was another early spring. In this half a year, although Qin Wushuang did not achieve a substantial breakthrough, he had consolidated his profound void martial stage. At the same time, he had become more coordinated with those 10 sealed spiritual beasts. Currently, these 10 sealed spiritual beasts had become Qin Wushuang's right-hand men. Bao Bao and Lone did not stay idle as they also worked hard to train. Nominally, these two guys were like Qin Wushuang's contracted spiritual beasts. Since their identities were not as sensitive as Murong Su, they could enter and leave the ascending dragon slope freely. Naturally, the environment of the ascending dragon slope allowed Bao Bao and Lone to be like fish in water. They had also benefited greatly from training at the ascending dragon slope. On this day, suddenly, Bao Bao had sensed something inwardly as he asked Lone to protect him. It was because he had a strong premonition that he was about to advance to the profound void martial stage. Compared to Qin Wushuang's training progress, Bao Bao felt that he was already slow. However, before Lone, Bao Bao's progress was clearly extremely fast. This time, Lone was incredibly calm. Ever since Qin Chongyang had spoken about the mutated spiritual beasts, Lone had become much calmer. Deep inside his heart, a trace of expectation had emerged. Bao Bao's bloodline was flowing rapidly. A wave of miraculous power inside his body made Bao Bao feel as if his entire body was about to explode. Currently, the entire slope was enveloped by a wave of golden light. Unconsciously, Bao Bao's breakthrough had triggered a violent change in the surrounding environment. When Lone saw this scene, he also felt extremely surprised. However, he knew that this was the crucial moment for Bao Bao's breakthrough. He did not want to disturb him. Anyways, this place was not far from Boss's residence. If something unexpected were to happen, he could call Boss to help. He would not need to worry about anything since it was his territory. Bursts of golden lights dashed to the sky from this slope. Under the golden lights, a ball of shadow danced and changed in the sky. This was Bao Bao undergoing the test of the profound void martial stage. At this moment, the profound void martial stage had arrived as promised. And Bao Bao was undergoing the final test of this level. To spiritual beasts, each breakthrough was extremely painful. Especially since Bao Bao had the bloodline of the ancient spiritual monkey, the bloodline inside his body was much more vigorous than ordinary spiritual beasts. Thus, when he was breaking through, the test and torment he received would become more intense in the later stages. However, in the end, Bao Bao was Bao Bao. The bloodline of the ancient spiritual monkey was not given to him for free. Although the breakthrough process had brought him endless pain. In fact, it did not cause any substantial harm to his body. Only this golden light was somewhat imposing. Coincidentally, something like this was about to happen. Just as the golden light gradually dimmed, several figures suddenly descended from the sky above the ascending dragon slope. These few figures were also as fast as ghosts as they continuously descended. Lone focused his mind and immediately blocked the path before Bao Bao's solitary training. Stop there! Lone looked at these four people and inwardly, he cried out bitterly. Among these four people, the two weakest were at the transformation void martial stage. Another one was at the profound void martial stage. The last one was the leader of this little circle, and he knew that he was at the perfect void martial stage. When they saw Lone standing on the slope, a short guy among the four asked curiously, "Young Master Hong, who is this big blockhead?" Usually, whoever dared to call Lone this name would have been torn into two halves by him. For your information, Lone was not someone easy to deal with. He had always been known for his belligerence and tyranny. However, this time, Lone did not act impulsively. He knew that now was not the time to act impulsively. Not to mention that he was not a match for these four people, even if he could deal with them. He could not create a big commotion and affect Bao Bao's breakthrough progress. The young man in the lead sized Lone up with some coldness from his brows and said, "Who are you? Don't you know that not just anyone can enter this ascending dragon slope?" Lone saw that this person was powerful and had a powerful temperament. He knew that the other three had obeyed him with a single glance. At the moment they also lacked confidence. However, they said with equal harshness, "Not just anyone can come, but it does not mean we cannot. Are you an offspring of the Qin clan? If you are, please do not disturb my friend's breakthrough." Breakthrough? Those four frowned and looked around. Then, they could not help but feel annoyed. "You seem to have chosen the wrong place, right?" "Wrong place? What do you mean?" Lone was also somewhat confused. He felt that this place was good. Why did he say he had chosen the wrong place? However, when he saw that these four people did not seem to have any friendly intentions, he paid attention inwardly. I recommend a platinum work, The Old Broken Rising Wind. The quality of a platinum work is guaranteed. Currently, this book is being promoted by the Three Rivers. Readers who like rebirth and official affairs can go take a look. Wang Guohua, the white-collar prodigal son that played in the secular world, had been reborn. When a chance to start over was placed before him, Wang Guohua chose another path. Thus, a story about the ups and downs of the official affairs had begun. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 627. The young leader was called Qin Shaohong. Among the young generation of the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan, he was unquestionably in the top 5. Additionally, among the young generation of the aspiring Throne Mountain, besides Qin Taichong, who was publicly recognized as superior, the remaining few in the top 5 were neck and neck. No one was willing to submit to anyone. This Qin Shaohong had another identity. He was the direct disciple of honored warrior Ji Huai. It was because among the 12 great honored warrior Ji Huai also held a superior position as he was ranked in the top 3. Besides the 3 chiefs, the honored warriors were the highest existences in the Qin clan. One could imagine the position of the top 3 honored warriors. Therefore, being the direct disciple of honored warrior Ji Huai, this Qin Shaohong also held a rather high position in the Qin clan. In his little circle, he was considered the leader. There were about 4 to 6 other core disciples that held the same position as this Qin Shaohong. Each of them had their own little circle and group. These little circles and groups only appeared to be close. In fact, it also indirectly reflected the situation of the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan. When the young people of the younger generation interacted, they were also secretly related to the older generation. When it came to the next generation, the circle of the older generation would not change much, or there would be no change at all. Usually, among the large circle of core disciples, this Qin Shaohong was not very convinced by others. At this moment, when he saw a strange giant guy standing before him, it appeared that he was related to the Qin clan. However, if a disciple of the Qin clan did not recognize him and was still training at his territory, was he not deliberately looking for trouble? Young Master Hong, should we teach him a lesson? That short disciple of the Qin clan asked Qin Shaohong with a flattering tone. Qin Shaohong gave a cold sneer and shouted at Lone, "If you know the situation, quickly tell me your name." Lone rolled his eyes. "Who are you? You are so carefree, why should I tell you my name?" Lone was also extremely hoodlum. He felt that these 4 people had their nostrils pointed to the sky and did not find them pleasing to the eye. He had run amok for half of his life and was used to being domineering. Now when he saw the other party acting with such arrogance, even if the other party was stronger, he still felt annoyed. Qin Shaohong laughed despite his extreme anger. "Kid, I see that you are tired of living. You are deliberately looking for trouble, right?" The short man also chimed in, "Hey, blockhead, you still dare to talk back? Do you know young Master Hong's position in the aspiring Throne Mountain? This hillside is young Master Hong's territory. You guys have some guts to cultivate here? Your territory?" Loneliness was not easy to fool. There were no houses near the hillside, which meant that it was a free area. Ascending Dragon Slope, to the core disciples, only the area around their houses and courtyards could be considered as their private territory. Other than that, they were all public areas. Lone felt that the man was lying through his teeth, which was an insult to his wisdom. He shouted, "You are really shameless. This place is obviously a public area. When did it become your private territory? Do you really think I'm a fool?" Qin Shaohong looked at Lone coldly. Since this person dared to say such words, it seemed like he understood the ascending dragon slope very well. It did not seem like he had accidentally barged into the ascending dragon slope. However, there had always been an unspoken rule at the ascending dragon slope. This hillside was not far from his private territory. In fact, this place was an extension of his private territory. Although it was only a few hundred miles, he had always thought that this area was also his private territory. Among the core disciples, these unspoken rules had also formed a mutual understanding. Usually, the disciples of the Qin clan in the other small circles would not come to this territory. Even though it was a public area on the surface, After those unspoken rules, everyone had tacitly agreed to divide their territory. To put it bluntly, this was a form of thinking of occupying the hill as a king. Hearing Lone's words, the short man knew that this person would not be easy to fool. However, he was not discouraged as he cried out, "Kid, who are you with? How come you don't have any eyes? Do you know the rules of this ascending dragon slope? This territory is young Master Hong's territory. You guys are trespassing by training here. It's a great disrespect to young Master Hong. Kid, be smart. Don't think that you are someone important after entering the ascending dragon slope. That's right, when you enter the ascending dragon slope, you must have some eyes. You can't just go anywhere. Hurry up and apologize to young Master Hong." These helpers were more energetic than Qin Shaohong. Lone raised the corner of his mouth and said proudly, "Apologize to him? Bullshit. I only know that only the yard of the ascending dragon slope is the territory of 4 people. This place is a few hundred miles away from the residential area. That is the public area. No one should think about occupying it as their own private land." Qin Shaohong said coldly, "I didn't see that you are such a clever and eloquent person. Kid, just what is your background?" Lone said carelessly, "Don't worry about my background, this place does not welcome you. Hurry up and leave, don't disturb my friend's training." Lone's tone was not the slightest bit courteous. He knew that Qin Shaohong was powerful. However, for a powerhouse at the perfect void martial stage, it was all right for him to act pretentious before Lone. Before Boss, he was only a scum. Any spiritual beast sent out by Boss could oppress him 10 or 8 times. Lone did not want to lose Boss's face the first time he encountered a problem. At the Qin clan, he could not take the initiative to provoke others. However, when others initiated the provocation, there was no need to endure it. This time, Qin Shaohong was truly furious. He pointed at Lone and said coldly, "It seems you are deliberately looking for trouble, right? All right, in this case, I will fulfill your wish." After he had finished speaking, Qin Shaohong's body dashed forward suddenly. Instantly, his entire body transformed into a burst of violent wind and rolled towards Lone. When Lone saw that the other party had made a move without hesitation and that his strength had reached a stage where he could not resist, as soon as this violent wind blew, Qin Shaohong's body had already approached Lone. At this moment, suddenly, a burst of equally powerful wind rotated and stopped Qin Shaohong's temperament. The 2 bursts of power collided and pushed each other. Both transformed into shadows and scuttled in the sky. When they dropped to their original place, they restored their original appearance. Qin Shaohong looked at Lone with astonishment. On Lone's side, a somewhat ugly man dressed entirely in white robes looked at Qin Shaohong with cold eyes. He had an expression that seemed to say, "If you want to come, please continue." Qin Shaohong's shock was not small. When did so many strange people come to the ascending dragon slope? It would have been all right if they only had a strange personality. Most importantly, their strength was also inexplicable. Although Qin Shaohong was arrogant, he felt that this ugly man in white before him was strong enough to fight against him. "Just who are you people?" Now, vividly, Qin Shaohong also felt that something was wrong. Humph! That ugly man in white did not answer. He only gave a cold sneer and looked at Bao Bao's mountain colonel. When he saw that the golden light was slowly dimming, he knew that this little monkey was almost at the end. He said to Lone, "Go pick up that little monkey and leave. Master said not to cause trouble." When Lone saw that a helper had come, instantly he was filled with confidence. Initially, he planned to discuss Dao with the other party. Upon hearing his friend say that Boss was unwilling to cause trouble, he gave up the idea angrily. Naturally, this ugly man in white was also a spiritual beast at the perfect void martial stage, illusionary cloud divine dog. After all, Qin Shaohong was not an elite warrior of the supreme Dao. He could not see through the essence of this spiritual beast's transformation. He thought that since when did these strange elite warriors appear at the ascending dragon slope? When he saw that Lone was about to leave, anger flashed across Qin Xiaohong's eyes as he shouted, "Hold on!" GMO turned around slowly. "What else do you want? If you don't explain clearly, don't think about leaving. I suspect that you are not disciples of the Qin clan, but spies from the outside." Lone and the illusionary cloud divine dog looked at each other in dismay. This would work? Wasn't this reason too far-fetched? This ascending dragon slope was the core area of the Qin clan. Unless the Qin clan was attacked, how could anyone sneak in? It seems that this Qin Xiaohong was still unwilling to give up and wanted to cause trouble. Illusionary cloud divine dog said indifferently, "Young man, if I were you, I would retreat in the face of difficulties. Do you think that if you continue to get entangled, what chance do you have to win?" Qin Xiaohong said with a strong sense of righteousness, "Don't play this trick. If you don't tell me your name, I will not hold back." Illusionary cloud divine dog said with a cold sneer, "You will not hold back? To tell you the truth, I would like to see how you will hold back. Kid, don't be arrogant. If it wasn't for my master's order, just by the fact that you made the first move, even if you did not die, I would have let you leave with a crippled body." These words were no different than adding fuel to the fire. At the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan, not many people dared to speak to Qin Xiaohong in this way. Especially at the ascending dragon slope, there was none. Even those leading figures with similar positions and skills to him were courteous to each other. At least on the surface, they had done enough. Unexpectedly, despite his arrogance, there were people more arrogant than him. "Young Master Hong, could it be this guy is crazy? Who does he think he is?" That short martial artist looked at illusionary cloud divine dog with a face full of ridicule. He felt that this ugly man in white clothes had lost his mind. "Tell me your master's name. This young master wants to see when our ascending dragon slope has such a powerful person." Inwardly, Qin Xiaohong was filled with anger. He had yet to meet a tough nail at the ascending dragon slope. Initially, he only wanted to act pretentious and put on airs before Lone to reveal his identity. This was also one of Qin Xiaohong's great hobbies. Up until now, whenever he encountered such situation, the other party would retreat with shame when they heard his name. It had allowed his sense of superiority to gain unprecedented satisfaction. Unexpectedly, this time, he had bumped into an iron plate. Illusionary cloud divine dog looked at Qin Xiaohong as if he was looking at an idiot. Ignoring him, he shouted to the bottom of the call, "You two, if you are done, go back immediately. Don't stay here, you will get into trouble." When Qin Xiaohong heard these words, he was even more displeased. What did he mean by getting into trouble? Wasn't this purely cursing? "Kid, you are too arrogant. It seems that if I don't make you suffer, you will not know that I have 3 eyes on my head." This Qin Xiaohong had always used the name of honored warrior Ji Huai, and was used to it. Therefore, at this moment, naturally, his domineering aura overflowed. Regardless of how strong your master's background is, can he be stronger than my teacher, honored warrior Ji Huai? To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 628. One must say that this Qin Xiaohong was extremely familiar with the way he pretended to be pretentious. He even had these words at his fingertip. However, there was a good saying that, if you pretended to be pretentious you would be awesome. If you did not, you would be an idiot. This Qin Xiaohong was not powerless. Only this time, he did not have good eyesight and did not see the situation clearly. If you want to act pretentious, you must pick a soft persimmon to pinch. Clearly, the elusive cloud divine dog was not some soft persimmon. Therefore, in his opinion, Qin Shaohong's pretentious actions were simply unreasonable and stupid. They were all disciples of the Qin clan. How come the difference between this Qin Shaoyu and his master was this great? The elusive cloud divine dog also felt puzzled as he twitched his mouth. Does the horse prince have 3 eyes? I really don't know. If you don't know, I will let you know today. The elusive cloud divine dog said with a cold sneer. Then I will wait for you to show your skills. In fact, although this Qin Shaohong was powerful, the elusive cloud divine dog was a spiritual beast at the perfect void martial stage. His body movements and attack power even surpassed this Qin Shaohong. Even without other helpers, it was not impossible to defeat this Qin Shaohong. Not to mention his other companions were still hiding in the surrounding area. Bao Bao was Qin Wushuang's brother. Since he was going to advance and break through in solitary training, it was impossible for Qin Wushuang not to make some arrangement. Therefore, in secret, he sent a few sealed spiritual beasts to guard the surrounding area. At the same time, he must take care of Lone's face and not let these sealed spiritual beasts show themselves when it was not necessary. If this Qin Shaohong had not suddenly appeared, the elusive cloud divine dog would not have come out. The elusive cloud divine dog stood there casually and turned a blind eye to this Qin Shaohong. At this moment, the elusive cloud divine dog received Qin Wushuang's spiritual perception. Elusive cloud, don't mess with him. Bao Bao and Lone are already back. You should also bring your companions back. The elusive cloud divine dog revealed a playful smile. He shot a few glances at the aggressive Qin Shaohong and sent his spiritual perception. Master, I don't want to mess with you, but this young master is unwilling to let me go. Qin Wushuang said indifferently. You tell him, if he has something to do, come to the ascending dragon slope to find me, Qin Wushuang. The illusionary cloud divine hound had received his master's order and did not dare to suddenly hurt people at the ascending dragon slope. No matter what, this was his master's sect. If he hurt anyone, it could be his own people. He immediately nodded and said to Qin Shaohong, My master doesn't want to argue with you. That's all for today. If you don't want to give up, you can talk to my master personally. Under the powerful aura of the illusionary cloud divine hound, Qin Shaohong really did not have the courage to completely turn hostile. At first, he thought that the person in front of him wouldn't be much stronger than him. However, the more he observed, the more he felt that the other party was not weaker than him at all. In fact, he even had a faint feeling that the other party was superior to him. This caused Qin Shaohong to be both shocked and furious, but in the end, he did not dare to act rashly. When he heard the other party's words, he went along with the flow and asked, Who is your master? I really want to pay him a visit and see who is so ignorant about educating his subordinate. Then you're good. My master is called Qin Wushuang. He lives at the ascending dragon slope. After the illusionary cloud divine hound finished speaking, it turned into a ray of white light and disappeared into the void. Qin Shaohong was dumbstruck. For a moment, he was unable to regain his senses. Qin Wushuang? This name sounded familiar. Qin Shaohong was about to speak when he suddenly thought of something and slapped his thigh. He said that he is Qin Wushuang's servant? That short cultivator flattered and nodded. Yes, young Master Hong. He was talking about some Qin Wushuang. However, this Qin Wushuang. What? Qin Wushuang? The short cultivator suddenly thought of something. His forehead was covered in cold sweat and his expression changed greatly. These days, even if their information was outdated, they had heard of the name Qin Wushuang. Although Qin Wushuang's trip to the floating snow house was kept secret and was not announced to the outside world. However, the story between him and the heavenly Luo Daoist sect had spread like wildfire across the entire aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan. Even those who did not pay attention to the outside world had more or less heard about it. If one were to say that during the battle with the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, Qin Wushuang had more or less resorted to trickery, yet no one could ignore the fact that he had received the personal reception of the chief. Additionally, not everyone had the strength to resort to trickery when fighting against the heavenly Luo Daoist sect. If one did not have absolute strength, what could they use to resort to trickery? Of course, there was the so-called saying of seeing is believing. Although Qin Wushuang had gained a great reputation in recent years, many people still felt that sometimes the rumors were exaggerated. Of course, this Qin Shaohong had also heard of Qin Wushuang's name. He had heard it often. After all, he was Zhi Huai's direct disciple, his prized disciple. Zhi Huai and Qin Wushuang's ancestor, Qin Yu, were famous for not getting along well when they were young. Therefore, when Qin Shaohong heard the rumors about Qin Wushuang, he could not help but feel some negative emotions. He had always wanted to see whether this Qin Wushuang was as devilish as the rumors said. Unexpectedly, this opportunity had presented itself before him. Indeed, he had worn out iron shoes in a fruitless search, and found it by chance without any effort. Although Qin Shaohong liked to put on airs, he was not completely brainless. Now, if they went to find him rashly, certainly they would not gain any advantage with just the few of them. Although he was not clear of the relationship between that ugly man in white clothes and Qin Wushuang, he would not be wrong to address Qin Wushuang as master. What the hell, that Qin Wushuang is only a kid from the human countries, how could he have such powerful subordinates? It seems that he was respectful to Qin Wushuang and kept calling him master. With such doubts in his mind, Qin Shaohong finally suppressed his impulse and decided to think of a way. That short, mischievous man noticed a subtle change when he saw Qin Shaohong's expression. He cautiously reminded, "Young Master Hong, we still have to talk to honored Sir Zhi Huai about this matter and ask him to make a decision." Qin Shaohong originally had the same plan, but he could not bring himself to do it, so he was hesitant. Seeing that this short man took the initiative to bring it up, he could take advantage of the situation. Unexpectedly, another follower shouted, "Young Master Hong, there's no need to trouble honored Sir Zhi Huai with such a small matter, right? I don't believe that a kid from the human countries can have such great ability. Young Master Hong, I think that kid's reputation is undeserved. We can take this opportunity to expose his undeserved reputation and make a name for ourselves." Qin Shaohong's expression froze, thinking to himself, "Are you crazy? Can't you see the strength of that ugly man in white clothes? Even if Qin Wushuang's reputation was undeserved, that person's strength was real." Qin Shaohong did not feel that he had enough assurance to defeat the other party. When that short guy heard his comrades clamor, he inwardly groaned and slapped the back of that guy's head. "You are the only one who is meddlesome. Do you think young Master Hong does not have his own opinions? Young Master Hong is so wise, certainly he has his own plans. Am I right, young Master Hong?" Although this guy's flattery was not brilliant, Qin Shaohong still enjoyed it. After all, he had given him a way out. He nodded. "Of course we cannot let this matter go. However, now is not the time to act blindly without thinking. Regardless, we are all disciples of the Qin clan. If we want to talk to Qin Wushuang, we must ask honored Sir Zhi Huai first." When he said it this way, of course the others would not object. The group quickly left the ascending dragon slope and flew towards honored Sir Zhi Huai's territory. On the other hand, Qin Wushuang listened to the detailed explanation from elusive Cloud Divine Hound at his own courtyard. Qin Shaohong is the direct disciple of honored Sir Zhi Huai. As Qin Wushuang mulled over this information, he realized some problems. Initially, when they were discussing his identity as a core disciple at the Upright Morality Hall, honored Sir Zhi Huai was the one who raised the objection. According to the tone of Elder Guanfeng, among the people who were at odds with ancestor Qin Wushuang, this honored Sir Zhi Huai should be the first to bear the brunt. Now, it was unavoidable for him to oppose Qin Wushuang. Although Qin Wushuang did not take the initiative to provoke people and acted with a low profile, it did not mean that he was a soft persimmon at the Qin clan that anyone could pinch. Inwardly, he also had a bottom line. For the sake of the Qin clan, he could ignore the past history. However, if someone wanted to use their seniority to suppress him, Qin Wushuang would not allow himself to be captured without a fight. Regardless of the internal or external rules of the Tianxian land, the strong preyed on the weak. Although the Qin clan was relatively united internally and the atmosphere of internal strife was not flourishing, it did not mean that such things would not happen. Master, that kid is so arrogant. If you didn't instruct us to keep a low profile, I would have taught him a lesson. What is he playing at? Elusive Cloud Divine Dog still appeared somewhat annoyed. Indeed, Qin Xiaohong's condescending attitude made him feel somewhat disgusted. Qin Wushuang said with a smile, "Don't be in a rush. If this Qin Xiaohong does not know what's good for him, certainly he will come to cause trouble again. By that time, let's see what he is playing at." Bao Bao clenched his fist. "Boss, I just broke through, let me practice, how about it? I will beat him until he looks for his teeth all over the floor." Qin Wushuang waved his hand. Qin Xiaohong is at the perfect void martial stage. Although you have entered the profound void martial stage and combined with the bloodline of the immemorial spiritual monkey, you can barely contend against him. It's still difficult to win against him. Don't be in a rush, you will have many opportunities to make a move in the future. Are you afraid of not having a chance to fight? Bao Bao chuckled mischievously, scratched his head and retreated to the side. At this moment, a burst of light shot from the opposite side of the slope. It was Elder Guanqi again. This Elder Guanqi would not come to the Three Treasures Palace for no reason. Each time he came, he would bring some news. This time, he had come in a hurry, certainly something had happened. Qin Wushuang went out to welcome him and said with a smile, "After not seeing you for almost a year, you still have your graceful bearing." Guanqi laughed and said, "Wushuang, after not seeing you for a year, your strength has increased again. By the way, this time I came because of the private instruction from the third chief. I have an important matter to discuss with you, let's talk inside. Please." Upon hearing his words, Qin Wushuang was not in a rush to pursue the matter. He invited Elder Guanqi into the courtyard. Besides Bao Bao and Lone, the other sealed spiritual beasts naturally chose to withdraw. After Elder Guanqi had sat down, he said straightforwardly, "Wushuang, recently there is an exceptional opportunity to gain experience. The spots are extremely limited. The third chief wants to ask if you are interested. To be continued, if you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading." Chapter 629. Opportunity to gain experience? Qin Wushuang was stunned, for he did not understand. He only muttered to himself irresolutely and was not in a rush to continue the conversation. Elder Guanqi nodded. "Yes. Wushuang, you have heard of the illusion Heavenly Lake, right?" "Illusion Heavenly Lake?" Qin Wushuang nodded. He had heard of the illusion Heavenly Lake. However, he had heard about it from Qin Chongyang, the third chief, when he was on the way to the Qin clan. The illusion Heavenly Lake was one of the 5 forbidden spiritual zones in the Tianxian land. The totem clan there was called the Karakoram Immortal Clan. Currently, Qin Wushuang only knew this much. In fact, Qin Wushuang had already interacted with people of the illusion Heavenly Lake. Initially at the mouth of the bowl, before the thatched hut of that little girl Shui Rulan, Qin Wushuang had been tortured by a woman dressed in imperial clothing. In fact, that woman was a figure from the illusion Heavenly Lake. However, Qin Wushuang had been kept in the dark. He always thought that group of people were powerhouses from the Xian Yuan Mound. Elder Guanqi, The Illusion Heavenly Lake is a forbidden spiritual zone located in the west, right? Elder Guan Qi nodded. Yes, the Illusion Heavenly Lake is the same as the Xian Yuan Mound. They are both forbidden spiritual zones that have close interactions with each other. Between the major forbidden spiritual zones, there is also a difference between close and not close interactions? Qin Wushuang asked with curiosity. Of course. Elder Guan Qi chuckled. Usually, the endless eastern sea and the heavenly fire southern border do not have close interactions with the other three forbidden spiritual zones. Relatively speaking, the Xian Yuan Mound, the Illusion Heavenly Lake, and the extreme north snow zone are all ruled by human martial artists. They have frequent interactions. For the endless eastern sea, the human martial artists have very little power there. The heavenly fire southern border is a situation where the spiritual beasts and humans share the world equally. Upon hearing the explanation of Elder Guan Qi, Qin Wushuang nodded thoughtfully. Then the experience you mentioned earlier, could it be going to the Illusion Heavenly Lake? Elder Guan Qi chuckled. Yes, if it's an ordinary interaction, it doesn't matter if I go or not. However, this was a rare opportunity. In the Xian Yuan Mound, only the Heavenly Emperor 8 gates are qualified to be invited. Oh? Invitation? An invitation from the Illusion Heavenly Lake? Elder Guan Qi said with infinite fascination, the invitation this time is no small matter. It's the Illusion Heavenly Lake's Totem Clan's Kunlun Immortal Clan's 10,000 Years Immortal Pilgrimage Assembly. Such a grand event only occurs once every 10,000 years. This is also the first grand event that the Karakoram Immortal Clan has kept since its historical inheritance. A grand event organized by the Totem faction? Qin Wushuang's heart skipped a beat. No wonder it was valued so much. The position of the Karakoram Immortal Clan at the Illusion Heavenly Lake was similar to the position of the Xian Yuan Clan at the Xian Yuan Mound. Although Qin Wushuang had lived at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain for a long time, he had never heard any news from the Xian Yuan Clan. The Totem Clan was a hidden force in the forbidden spiritual zones. They were also the controlling force. Under normal circumstances, they would never show themselves. Therefore, it was almost impossible for the various powerhouses in the Xian Yuan Mound to curry favor with the Totem Clan. Elder Guan Qi gave a long sigh. Wushuang, this is a rare opportunity. The Qin clan has also been invited. However, the quota is fixed. At most, each sect can only send 6 people. In other words, all the powerhouses of the Heavenly Emperor 8 gates can only send 48 people. Even the Heavenly Emperor Xian clan is not an exception. Each sect only had 6 spots? In total, there were 48 spots. Even with the 5 forbidden spiritual zones added together, there were only 200 people. Although it was called a grand event, the number of people was too little, right? Since it's an invitation from the Totem Clan, it's impossible for the Xian Yuan clan not to go, right? Qin Wushuang asked curiously. For the Totem Clan, it's an exchange between the totem powerhouses. Certainly, the Heavenly Emperor 8 gates are not qualified to ask. This 10,000 years immortal pilgrimage assembly only occurs once every 10,000 years. I don't know the exact details. For the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan, I don't even know if we have any elite warriors that are 10,000 years old. Is the head chief not 10,000 years old? Qin Wushuang could not but help to ask. Ha, the head chief is mysterious and unfathomable, it's not something we can speculate about. Elder Guan Qi stood up with a smile. Wushuang, this spot is rare. Most likely, you will have to go through competition to get it. For the exact distribution, one chief will bring 5 young disciples to participate. As for the honored warriors and elders, they are not qualified. Therefore, you need to fight for the 5 spots of the young disciples. 5 spots. Qin Wushuang thought for a moment. For 5 spots, for sure I will have hope to fight for a spot. Qin Wushuang had this confidence. Elder Guan Qi laughed. Wu Shuang, among the young generation of the Qin clan, besides the extremely outstanding Qin Taichong, there are 5 other people. There are also 5 or 6 young people with similar strength. Certainly, Qin Taichong is undisputed. For the remaining 4 spots, perhaps 6 or 7 people will fight for it. Wu Shuang, the 3rd chief, means for you to do your best. He really hopes you can go and gain some knowledge. One must say that regardless of Qin Yunran or Qin Chongyang, both of them thought highly of Qin Wushuang's future. However, the future was the future. Having a good future did not mean they could give him endless support now. The aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan was a large family that emphasized fairness. At any moment, favoritism would not be a wise choice. Qin Yunran and Qin Chongyang intended to promote Qin Wushuang and nurture Qin Wushuang. However, for such matter, it was difficult to give him special privileges. If they were to give Qin Wushuang, a newcomer, special privileges, it would certainly influence the atmosphere of the entire Qin clan. Regardless of how much Qin Yunran and Qin Chongyang admired Qin Wushuang, they would not make such an unwise choice. They hoped to give some help to Qin Wushuang in secret and let Qin Wushuang stand out with his own strength. In that case, it would be more legitimate to nurture Qin Wushuang as the successor of the Qin clan. Qin Wushuang was not an idiot. Of course, he knew their good intentions. Since the 2 chiefs had such expectations for him, it would not be appropriate for him to refuse. He said to Elder Guan Qi, "Elder, please reply to the 2 chiefs that regardless of the form of selection, I will do my best." Elder Guan Qi chuckled. "All right. Wu Shuang, personally, I also admire you. By the way, although this pageant is extremely rare, don't worry too much about winning or losing. After all, you have not been at the Qin clan for long. Those exceptional ones among the core disciples have been nurtured by the Qin clan since they were young." Qin Wushuang knew that Elder Guan Qi was reminding him to not underestimate the enemy. In case he did not stand out, he should not be too depressed. Thinking about it, from the previous Qin Shaohong, he was already at the perfect void martial stage. His strength was indeed extraordinary. Immediately he asked, "Elder Guan Qi, those 5 or 6 people you mentioned, do they include Qin Shaohong?" "Qin Shaohong? Have you dealt with him before?" Elder Guan Qi was somewhat surprised. Qin Wushuang did not conceal it. "We have dealt with him earlier." Elder Guan Qi laughed and gave a long sigh. "Wushuang, that Qin Shaohong is one of them. Could it be you guys have some grudges?" Elder Guan Qi was an incredibly sharp person. Earlier at the Upright Morality Hall, when he saw honored warrior Ji Huai opposed Qin Wushuang becoming a core disciple directly, he had kept some information. Now, when he heard Qin Wushuang mention Qin Shaohong, of course he became more cautious. Qin Shaohong was a direct disciple nurtured by honored warrior Ji Huai with all his efforts. It was impossible for Elder Guan Qi to not know him. Qin Wushuang said lightly, "It's not a grudge, only Qin Shaohong seems to be overly tyrannical." Elder Guan Qi said with a bitter smile, "That child inherited the personality of honored warrior Ji Huai. He is rather flamboyant and outgoing." "Wu Shuang, if it's not necessary, it's better to not get into a deadlock with him." Honored warrior Ji Huai's methods were extremely famous at the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan. With Qin Wushuang's identity as a new disciple, even if the chief appreciated him, it did not mean he could challenge honored warrior Ji Huai. Qin Wushuang knew that Elder Guan Qi was doing it for his own good as he smiled without commenting. Bao Bao was not happy. "Elder Guan Qi, that Qin Shaohong is provoking us. We cannot just sit back and do nothing, right? My boss is only afraid of hurting the friendship between fellow disciples. He is not truly scared of him." Lone also said, "Isn't that right? However, that guy acts like a local overlord. It feels as if this ascending dragon slope is their private territory." Elder Guan Qi was an old man at the sect. Of course, he had heard about Qin Xiaohong's misdeeds. However, he was an outsider and it was inappropriate for him to speak about it. Yes, anyways, you should pay attention to the scale. For the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan, there are also disputes between internal disciples. However, it rarely evolves to the point of being irreconcilable. The meaning behind his words was to control the scale. Qin Wushuang understood tacitly. All right, Wushuang, this time I have come as a private instruction. Therefore, for this matter, you must keep it a secret for now. Prepare yourself first. Although I don't know how the selection method will be set, you should prepare in all aspects. Qin Wushuang was incredibly grateful. Elder Guanqi, sorry to trouble you again. Haha, not at all. My duty as Guanqi is to run errands for everyone. Alright, stay here. Elder Guanqi patted Qin Wushuang's shoulder to encourage him. Then, he floated away. When Bao Bao saw Elder Guanqi had left, he chuckled. Boss, I heard there are many beautiful girls at the Illusion Heavenly Lake. Qin Wushuang rolled his eyes. Little one, spring is here, it seems you are getting restless. Bao Bao gave a mischievous laugh and revealed a strange smile. Illusion Heavenly Lake? In fact, Qin Wushuang had some memories of the Illusion Heavenly Lake. He had learned this memory from Qin Yunran, the second chief. This memory was related to his graceful spiritual bow. Initially, Chief Qin Yunran had said that the original owner of the graceful spiritual bow was an elite warrior of the Illusion Heavenly Lake. He had lost the graceful spiritual bow when he came to the Xian Yuan Mound to challenge the Xian Yuan clan. The original graceful spiritual bow had 9 arrows and were called the Shooting Sun arrows. According to the second chief's speculation, those 9 Shooting Sun arrows were confiscated by the Xian Yuan clan. Although Qin Wushuang had clicked on the original Shooting Sun arrows, he did not have the courage to ask for them from the Xian Yuan clan. The totem clan of the Illusion Heavenly Lake, the Karakoram Immortal clan, was hosting the 10,000-year pilgrimage pageant. He wondered if this graceful spiritual bow was related to the totem clan of the Illusion Heavenly Lake. If it were an ordinary gathering, Qin Wushuang would not be interested. However, since it was related to the totem clan, it was definitely the best opportunity to broaden his horizons. Naturally, Qin Wushuang would not want to miss this opportunity. Therefore, he planned to strive for it with all his strength. He could use this opportunity to exchange pointers with the young disciples of the Qin clan and increase the exchange. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 630. Qin Wushuang was not certain whether the remaining 3 loops of the 7 deadly arrays formation would lead to the Illusion Heavenly Lake or not. However, since the Illusion Heavenly Lake was one of the 5 forbidden spiritual zones, certainly it had its merit. Indeed, Qin Wushuang wanted to see it for himself. Especially in terms of the mysteriousness of the totem clan, he wanted to understand it urgently. Of course, since Elder Guanqi had said it, certainly this selection would not be simple. It wasn't that easy to break out of the encirclement. On the other hand, when Qin Xiaohong arrived before the mansion of honored warrior Ji Huai, naturally he was unimpeded. When those guardians under honored warrior Ji Huai saw Qin Xiaohong arrive, not only did they not stop him, they went up to greet him with some flattery. "Young Master Hong is here." "Hello, young Master Hong." Qin Xiaohong squeezed out a smile and spoke a few perfunctory words. He asked casually, "Is the honored warrior at the mansion?" "Young Master Hong has come at the wrong time. This morning, the honored warrior seems to have gone to the Upright Morality Hall to discuss matters. I reckon he won't be back until later." "He went to the Upright Morality Hall? Today is not the day of the gathering, right?" Qin Xiaohong felt somewhat strange. If it was a gathering, the core disciples should also participate. However, after thinking about it, he did not think about it. Perhaps it was some small matter that did not require everyone to participate. Since he was here, regardless of how late the honored warrior would return, he must wait. This wait lasted until evening, when Honorable Ji Huai finally returned. When he saw Qin Shaohong, he was somewhat surprised. However, Ji Huai valued this disciple greatly. This Qin Shaohong could almost be said as his last disciple. There was no need to talk about his talent. Among the Qin clan, he would definitely rank in the top few. The rarest part was that the personality of this kid was somewhat congenial to honored warrior Ji Huai. He did not lack calmness amidst his tyranny. This was something Ji Huai liked the most. He felt that from this Qin Shaohong, he saw the shadow of himself when he was young. This way, Ji Huai could not help but entrust many of his unrealized dreams to Qin Shaohong. For example, he wanted to become the chief. When Ji Huai became an honored warrior, he could be said to be the honored warrior beneath the chief. However, compared to the chief, although the honored warrior held a high position, there was still a clear difference. Therefore, it was clear that he entrusted his hopes to Qin Shaohong. The direction of cultivation was also very clear. Seeing that Qin Shaohong was here, Ji Huai smiled and said, "Shaohong, it's good that you're here. It saves me the trouble of looking for you." Qin Shaohong was stunned. He had specially come to look for his master today to talk about Qin Wushuang. Judging from his master's tone, it seemed that he was also looking for him. "Master, aren't I here to visit you? Coincidentally, I have encountered a matter and would like to consult Master on how to deal with it." Qin Shaohong appeared to be very humble in front of Ji Huai. "Oh? What a coincidence! I also have something important to tell you." "Then you go first." Ji Huai did not have much patience for others, but towards this closed-door disciple, he was extremely doting and protective. Qin Shaohong immediately recounted everything that had happened during the day, and his tone was rather indignant. After saying that, he couldn't help but complain, "Master, this Qin Wushuang is so arrogant when he just arrived. Of all the places he could go, why did he choose to cultivate in my territory? I think he's trying to show off." Qin Shaohong still took it for granted that the territory belonged to him. Of course, honored warrior Ji Huai was well aware of the tricks involved. The leaders of the core disciples at the ascending dragon slope each had their own sphere of influence. They all liked to treat their sphere of influence as their own territory and as their private territory. Since no major incident had occurred, the higher-ups of the Qin clan also turned a blind eye to it. Upon hearing the words of Qin Shaohong, Ji Huai could not but help to frown. "Shaohong, does that Qin Wushuang know that it's your sphere of influence? It's been a few years since he entered the aspiring throne mountain, right? It's impossible for him not to know," Qin Shaohong said angrily. Normally, it would be impossible for the core disciples who had entered the ascending dragon slope to not know the hidden rules of the ascending dragon slope after cultivating for a year. If one were to say that Qin Wushuang did not know, Ji Huai would not believe it. If Qin Wushuang knew that it was Qin Shaohong's territory and still did this, it would be worth thinking deeply about. "Shaohong, in this year, how many times have you seen Qin Wushuang at the ascending dragon slope?" Qin Shaohong said with a bitter smile, "Teacher, to tell you the truth, I have never seen him even once." That Qin Wushuang seemed to be avoiding everyone deliberately. Not to mention me, the others also did not see him. This kid seems to be very narcissistic and did not interact much with everyone. On the contrary, this Qin Shaohong had wronged Qin Wushuang. After Qin Wushuang had entered the aspiring throne mountain, he had first gone to the floating snow house and then returned to the human countries. It had taken him more than half a year. In the half a year since he had returned from the human countries, he had been training near the yard and never went out. Naturally, he could not meet everyone. It was not because Qin Wushuang was deliberately putting on airs, but because he did not want to establish a relationship with others just to join in the fun. Never seen him? This was too inconceivable. Never seen him. Qin Shaohong was extremely certain. This guy is truly mysterious. The more mysterious Qin Wushuang was, the more uncertain Ji Huai felt. From the beginning, he felt that this young man was not easy to grasp. He could not see through him. He was much more profound than the Qin Yu from back then. Qin Yu's talent was very strong, but he was easily emotional. But this Qin Wushuang, Ji Huai felt that he could not see through him at all. Master, this guy is a newcomer, yet he doesn't know the rules. Shouldn't this disciple teach him a lesson? Ji Huai was silent for a long time before he said, "This Qin Wushuang, you need to test him. However, you need to use your brain. If you are not sure, you can use others. This Qin Wushuang is so arrogant, how could the other core disciples' leaders just let him be? Shaohong, you need to pull a few more people, this way it will be easier for you to gain a foothold." Master, you mean to exclude him? Qin Shaohong's heart was moved. Forming cliques, this was something he was very good at. Ji Huai smiled faintly. "I did not say anything, use your brain. I will not teach you this matter, let's see how you handle it. However, whatever you want to do, just do it boldly. As long as you don't go too far, if anything happens, I can cover for you. If it were anyone else, certainly it would be extremely shocking to teach a disciple this way. However, this Ji Huai had always taught his disciples this way. This was his style. It was not because he was brainless, but because he intended to nurture his disciple into a powerful person. With power and strength, he would be able to survive in any place. Especially when competing for the position of the next chief. If he was not powerful, how could he stand out from a group of competitors? How could he make others fear him? Qin Shaohong was beaming with joy when he heard these words. With his teacher's words, he was confident. "Teacher, don't worry, I already have a plan." A decisive look flashed across Ji Huai's brows as he said to Qin Shaohong, "Shaohong, remember, you must use this opportunity to stand out. A good opportunity will appear in the near future. If you grasp it, perhaps it will be a great fortune." "Teacher, what kind of fortune is that?" Hearing honored warrior Ji Huai speaking with such seriousness, Qin Shaohong could not help but ask curiously, "Do you know about the illusion Heavenly Lake?" Honored warrior Ji Huai asked lightly. "Of course I know, the forbidden spiritual zones are on the same level as the Xian Yuan Mound. Teacher, what about the illusion Heavenly Lake?" The totem clan of the illusion Heavenly Lake is hosting the 10,000-year pilgrimage pageant. It's only held once every 10,000 years. They are opening the mountain gate and inviting all the exceptional sects from the forbidden spiritual zones. Of course, the Qin clan is also included. There are a total of 6 spots, one big one leading 5 small ones. For the younger generation, there are 5 spots. 5 spots. Qin Shaohong laughed. "Teacher, if there are 5 spots, certainly I can get them. Even if it's 3, I have the confidence to get them." The expression of honored warrior Ji Huai sank. "If it's 3 names, my requirement for you is not to have the confidence to get them, but that you must get them. If among the next generation, you cannot even enter the top 3? How can you talk about inheriting the position of chief? Shaohong, your requirement for yourself must be within the top 3. You must not strive for the top 3, understand?" For the top 3, although Qin Shaohong was confident, he did not have 100% assurance. However, since his teacher said it this way, of course he could not refute. He nodded. "I understand. This time, there are 5 spots, you must not be careless. If you can't even get 5 spots, Shaohong, then you'll be throwing away my old face." Qin Shaohong had a card up his sleeve. "Teacher, regarding the top 5, I have the absolute assurance. I will never fail." "It's good that you have the assurance," Ji Huai said lightly. Today, we are going to the Upright Morality Hall to discuss this matter. At that time, there will be a selection. As for the content of the selection, it has not been finalized yet. Regardless of the method, it will be fair and just. Those with strong strength will certainly be selected. Suddenly, Qin Shaohong said, "Teacher, do you think that Qin Wushuang received the appreciation of the chief? Would he go through the back door?" "Go through the back door?" "It's one matter for the chief to appreciate him. It's another matter for him to go through the back door. Shaohong, don't take the chief's appreciation too seriously. If that Qin Wushuang does not have genuine talent, the temporary appreciation will fade away as time passes. The chief is a sensible person. He will not break the rules for a Qin Wushuang. Don't let your imagination run wild. Even if it's the chief, he will not be able to bear the price." Hearing his teacher say so, Qin Shaohong felt more confident. He also put down those unnecessary worries. As long as there was no favoritism, he, Qin Shaohong, was more confident in standing out. "Shaohong, this matter has not been finalized yet. It's enough for you to know. Don't talk nonsense outside. I reckon that the leaders of the core disciples will definitely know. The ordinary core disciples will probably be kept in the dark for the time being." Qin Shaohong said happily, "Don't worry, teacher, I am not the kind of person who will gossip. If there's nothing else, you can leave first. Think about it carefully, don't let your emotions affect your decisions. In the sect, the best way to defeat a person is not to kill him, but to not let him have a place to stand, understand?" Honored Sir Ji Huai's experience when he was young was now imparted to Qin Shaohong. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 631. Although Qin Shaohong liked to put on airs and act pretentious, he was still a little smart. After leaving honored Sir Ji Huai's place, he pondered for a while and came up with a good idea. Taking everything into account, among these core disciples at the ascending dragon slope, except for Qin Taichong, who was far ahead of everyone, the other 5 were not much different from each other. No one was willing to submit to anyone, and they each had their own small circle. On the contrary, Qin Taichong, the strongest core disciple, did not form his own small circle. However, at his level, he did not need a small circle to protect his authority. Because when he stood at the ascending dragon slope, all the circles had to gather around him. Putting aside Qin Taichong, there were 5 people at Qin Shaohong's level. Qin Shaohong pondered for a while and decided to persuade them one by one. If it was during normal times, his persuasion might not be useful. However, after his master revealed that piece of information today, he believed that the leaders of these core disciples would more or less have some news. Therefore, he used this matter as a breakthrough point. Explain with emotion and move with reason. Analyze the stakes inside. There were a total of 5 places, and Qin Taichong would definitely occupy one. Out of the remaining 4 places, they alone had 5. There was also a newcomer, Qin Wushuang, who was eyeing covetously. Someone would definitely fail to be selected. Therefore, Qin Shaohong made a fuss about this. He planned to unite these 5 people and isolate Qin Wushuang. Then, the 5 of them would fight for 4 places. Although in the end, it was inevitable that someone would fail to be selected. However, it was better for one person to fail than 2. Everyone was well aware of this relationship of interest. Therefore, when Qin Shaohong contacted them, they really hit it off. Except for Qin Jining, who disdained to participate, the other 3 hit it off with Qin Shaohong. They decided to start with Qin Wushuang first. No matter what, they would push out one person first. As for Qin Jining, who liked to play tricks and pretend to be virtuous, they would not interfere. The final result was that Qin Jining would also be pushed out. In this way, the number of places was just right. However, Qin Jining was not a kind person. It would not be so easy to push him out. Not to mention that this fellow's background was not ordinary, just his cultivation alone was enough to surpass most of them. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the ability to act so high and mighty. Qin Shaohong didn't mind. You, Qin Jining, could participate or not. There were 4 people, and that was enough. He would find it troublesome if there were too many. Since Qin Jining did not participate, he, Qin Shaohong, was even more confident in occupying a dominant position in the circle of these 4 people. Qin Jining was someone that Qin Shaohong had always compared himself with. Qin Taichong was high above them and had left them far behind. No one could compare to him. Qin Jining, on the other hand, was faintly showing signs of becoming the second strongest core disciple. Therefore, Qin Shaohong had always viewed him as a direct competitor. Qin Shaohong had always refused to accept Qin Jining, but he had never had the chance to verify whether Qin Jining was more powerful or if he, Qin Shaohong, was more powerful. The 4 of them agreed that they would visit Qin Wushuang at the ascending dragon slope the next day to suppress the arrogance of this newcomer. Early in the morning of the next day, Qin Wushuang woke up early. It was because Murong Su had sent her spiritual perception to tell him that her father, Mu Rongqianji, would arrive at the aspiring throne mountain this afternoon to pay an official visit to the Qin clan. Now, Mu Rongqianji was equivalent to his future father-in-law. The Qin clan was Qin Wushuang's territory. Regardless of emotion or reason, Qin Wushuang should welcome him. Therefore, he prepared to go out early in the morning and planned to welcome Mu Rongqianji with Murong Su. Qin Lan from the neighboring courtyard also woke up early. When he saw Qin Wushuang, he greeted him with enthusiasm. "Brother, good morning." Qin Wushuang had been training here for almost half a year and was extremely familiar with Qin Lan. Clearly, this Qin Lan intended to befriend Qin Wushuang. It was because after Qin Lan had entered the mountain for a long time, he discovered with sorrow that as a core disciple from a branch, he was not treated well by others. It seemed that each small circle did not like to pay attention to him. Qin Lan was a lively person. When he could not find a circle, it made him feel extremely disappointed. Therefore, he felt even more urgent to befriend Qin Wushuang. "Wushuang, are you going out again?" Qin Lan asked with a smile. "Yes, I plan to go out today. I have some business to take care of." Qin Lan said with a smile, "Wushuang, you have been at the ascending dragon slope for a year, right? Did none of the leaders of the core disciples come to rope you in?" "Rope me in? Why would they rope me in?" Qin Wushuang revealed a strange expression. Qin Lan was speechless. He did not know whether this Qin Wushuang was insensitive or not interested in forming clique. "Wushuang, do you still not understand? Can't you see? There are small circles at the ascending dragon slope. 5 or 6 small circles have a group of people. People with small circles tend to be more arrogant than those without." "There is such a thing?" Qin Wushuang truly did not pay much attention to these things. Naturally, Qin Wushuang was not interested in such internal squabbles and childish tricks. "Isn't there such a thing?" Qin Lan felt that this Qin Wushuang was too careless as he did not have such little observation skills. Or did he not care at all? Didn't you realize? To be honest, Wushuang, we will be training here for a long time. Don't you think we should find a circle? Qin Lan could not help but tie himself to Qin Wushuang. However, Qin Wushuang smiled lightly. "I don't think there is a need for that, right? Training is an extremely personal matter. Regardless of how big the circle is, it would not be of much use to the improvement of one's strength." Qin Lan did not agree. "That is true, but did you not realize? Within the 10,000 miles of the ascending dragon slope, all the good areas have been turned into private territories by those small circles. If you want to go to those places to pick some things or find a hidden place to train in isolation, I am afraid you will be stopped." "Stopped? Qin Wushuang laughed. Not to mention, Qin Lan's words had reminded him of Qin Shaohong from yesterday. Indeed, he had treated the public territory as his private territory. Isn't that right? Wushuang, I am not lying to you. I have been stopped a few times when I walked within the 10,000 miles area of the Ascending Dragon Slope. Nominally, this Ascending Dragon Slope is a shared activity area for everyone. However, there are not many places where everyone can walk around freely. Qin Lan was deeply touched. He had entered the Ascending Dragon Slope earlier than Qin Wushuang and had hit a wall many times. However, he was a foreign disciple and had no relative. Who could he be unreasonable with? Complain? He had no way to do so, and it might not work. Without evidence, no one would speak for you. Qin Lan was a smart person. He knew that without evidence, no one would believe him even if he spoke until his mouth was dry. Additionally, as a foreign disciple, his words would not be as persuasive as a local disciple of the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan. Therefore, Qin Lan wanted to seek refuge in a small circle. He also worked hard towards this direction. However, as a foreign disciple, it would be extremely difficult for him to blend into this circle. Although he tried to do it deliberately, he still achieved little result. No one was willing to trust him, and no one was willing to accept him. This made Qin Lan feel incredibly vexed. When he saw Qin Wushuang staying at the courtyard all day, he thought that Qin Wushuang also felt the same way. Like him, he was isolated by everyone. Therefore, through his words, he could not refrain from empathizing with each other. Unexpectedly, Qin Wushuang did not feel it at all. Wushuang, you don't believe my words? When Qin Lan saw a noncommittal smile hanging from the corner of Qin Wushuang's mouth, he could not but help to feel somewhat anxious. I believe you, what about it? Qin Lan said with a depressed tone. Could it be that you have not encountered such problems? Wushuang, I know you can speak before the chief. Why don't you go reflect to the chief? If this continues, sooner or later, us foreign disciples will be pushed out of the Ascending Dragon Slope. Qin Wushuang asked curiously, how many foreign disciples are there? Not much, I guess. Only about 1/5 of the total. Although the Qin clan has tens and thousands of branches, the main bloodline of the Qin clan is still at the aspiring Throne Mountain. The probability of elite warriors appearing from the foreign branches is too small. Wushuang, you are also a foreign disciple, did they not push you out? Qin Lan did not seem to believe him as he continued to encourage him. Wushuang, I also heard of your name. Before you entered the mountain, you were already powerful. You even took out the heavenly Luo Daoist sect. I feel that you are completely qualified to establish your own circle and recruit those foreign disciples. I believe that everyone will support you. By that time, we will be able to stand on equal footing with them. One must say that Qin Lan was extremely enthusiastic about his idea. He spoke with radiant joy and wanted to make preparations immediately. However, when he shot a glance at Qin Wushuang, Qin Lan felt half of his heart turn cold. He was completely indifferent as he only looked forward with an indifferent gaze. Qin Lan felt that something was wrong with Qin Wushuang's gaze as he followed the direction he was looking. Good gracious, a dozen core disciples of the Ascending Dragon Slope were flying towards them with murderous intentions. It was obvious that they were heading in their direction with such ferocity. Qin Lan turned pale with fright. What are they playing at? Qin Wushuang smiled lightly. You spoke so much a moment ago, what are you talking about? I am talking about how the small circle is pushing out us foreign disciples. Yes, aren't they pushing us out? Qin Wushuang's understated tone appeared incredibly calm and natural. Qin Lan felt extremely impressed as he watched him. A true elite warrior was like this. Despite knowing that people were coming to cause trouble, they could still remain calm. Qin Lan admired Qin Wushuang even more. He felt that he must recognize Qin Wushuang as the boss. This way, he could ensure a foothold at the Ascending Dragon Slope. Otherwise, he would not be able to survive at the ascending dragon slope. 1, 2, 3, 18. Qin Wushuang calmly counted and smiled. There are quite a few of them. These 18 people were divided into 4 circles. The leaders were Qin Shaohong and the other 3 core disciples that he had contacted. These 4 groups of people, under Qin Shaohong's command, landed on the slope outside Qin Wushuang's courtyard. Qin Shaohong coldly looked at Qin Wushuang's courtyard and said lightly, "This is the place." Qin Lan's heart jumped when he saw this. He knew that these people did not come with good intentions. He felt somewhat uneasy in his heart. Could it be that his words had offended these people, and they had come to denounce him? Inwardly, Qin Wushuang knew that for sure, this group of people had come to intimidate him. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 632. Who is Qin Wushuang? Come out! Qin Wushuang, don't hide if you have the guts, come out. Don't underestimate the arrogance of these core disciples, they were not idiots. They knew that private property was protected and they could not barge in recklessly. Or else, they would be violating the rules of the Qin clan and would be severely punished. Therefore, although they had mustered a large force, they did not dare to barge into Qin Wushuang's yard. Although they saw Qin Wushuang standing in the yard, they deliberately shouted loudly to provoke Qin Wushuang. Clearly, they wanted Qin Wushuang to walk out of the yard. As long as he walked out of the yard, it would be easy for them. Naturally, Qin Shaohong and his people would not need to do such shouting work. The underlings would do it. When Qin Lan saw this aggressive stance, he shot a glance at Qin Wushuang and motioned him to contact the higher-up. However, this Qin Lan was not a guy that was afraid of trouble, as he was not in a rush to leave. Qin Wushuang was rather calm. He shot a glance at this group of guys and said with a cold sneer, "What are you shouting so early in the morning?" In Qin Wushuang's dictionary, there was no such word as shrinking back. He had seen the formation of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect and the major formation of the floating snow house. Of course, he would not be intimidated by such a small formation. He walked out slowly and leaned against the wall of the yard. He asked lazily, "Forgive my poor eyesight, how do I address you guys?" Qin Wushuang, don't pretend to be a wolf with a big tail. Yesterday, your people had barged into young Master Hong's territory. Don't even think about getting away with it. For this matter, you must give an explanation. Suddenly, a burst of sharp light exploded from Qin Wushuang's eyes as he locked onto Qin Shaohong's position. He said coldly, "Explanation? What do you need me to explain to you?" When Qin Shaohong heard Qin Wushuang's arrogant tone, he felt even more annoyed. He shot a glance at his friends and walked forward. "You are Qin Wushuang?" Qin Wushuang sneered. "All right, stop pretending you don't know me. It's not like we haven't met before. We met at the Upright Morality Hall. Are you pretending not to know me to show off your status?" Qin Wushuang didn't expect that Qin Wushuang's style of speaking would be so sharp. He was stunned for a moment. Then, he sneered, "All right, since you want to say it like this, let's not beat around the bush. Let me introduce you first. This is Brother Qin Hao, this is Brother Qin Shi, and this is Brother Qin Hongyan." The 3 people he introduced were the 3 leaders of different circles. They were also the other 3 masterminds of this incident. They had been instigated by Qin Shaohong. Qin Wushuang did not even look at him. He only asked indifferently, "There's no need for introductions. I've seen everyone in the Upright Morality Hall before. But what's your intention, Brother Qin Shaohong? If you have something to say, then say it quickly. If not, I still have things to do. I don't have time to chat with you." How could Qin Wushuang not see that this group of people had come with ill intentions? Since they had bullied him brazenly, Of course Qin Wushuang would not be amiable with them. Qin Wushuang's principle was simple. If you are friendly, I will be even friendlier. If you are not friendly, I will only treat you with my fists. If it weren't for the consideration that everyone was from the Qin clan, Qin Wushuang would have already asked them to leave. However, his words still made Qin Shaohong and his friends feel annoyed. Especially the other three people, they were all bursting with anger. It seemed that Qin Shaohong was right. Indeed, this Qin Wushuang was arrogant. He relied on the appreciation from the chief and became undisciplined and out of control. Was he going to raise his tail to the sky? Inwardly, Qin Shaohong sneered, "Qin Wushuang, be more arrogant if you have the skill. The more arrogant you are, the more I can do nothing about it." At the moment, he said with a strange tone, "Qin Wushuang, you are new here and don't know the rules. It's fine if it's just 1 or 2 times. However, you have repeatedly disregarded the rules. Do you think that no one at the ascending dragon slope can stop you?" As soon as he said these words, those 3 guys all opened their mouths to speak. "Yes, you are a newcomer. What are you being arrogant for? Don't sleep on the book of past achievements. Relying on the appreciation from the chief, you think you can walk sideways at the ascending dragon slope, right? Don't forget, the ascending dragon slope is not the countryside of your human countries. There are many capable people here. Acting pretentious at the ascending dragon slope, you should take a look at your own strength. Humph, you really don't know what you are talking about." These 3 had made an agreement with Qin Shaohong. Once they opened their mouths, no one could fall behind. They must occupy the moral high ground verbally. Qin Shaohong said with a cold sneer, "Did you hear that? Qin Wushuang, your arrogance has already made the entire ascending dragon slope unhappy. The few of us are only representing all the core disciples of the ascending dragon slope to knock on your head." Qin Lan was secretly shocked when he heard this. Good fellow, the leaders of the 4 circles had come. It seemed that Qin Wushuang had really offended many people this time. However, when he saw Qin Wushuang's calm expression, he was even more astonished. Why was this Qin Wushuang not nervous? If it was him, Qin Lan, he would have been scared to death. "Young Master Hong, don't talk nonsense with him. We have to let him know what kind of rules there are at the ascending dragon slope. Otherwise, won't this kid go against the heavens in the future?" Qin Wushuang looked at the performances of these guys one after another with an expression of watching a show. Suddenly he sneered, "Rules? There are rules at the ascending dragon slope? I'm ignorant and inexperienced. Who can tell me about it?" Qin Shaohong and the others looked at each other, thinking that this guy was not pretending to be stupid, right? What kind of rules at the ascending dragon slope did he not know? "Say it, don't hide it, I am listening. If there are really rules, let's follow the rules. I don't intend to be special." Qin Wushuang seemed to be very easy to talk to. Qin Shaohong and the other 3 were not fools. They knew that this kind of unspoken rules was not something that could be brought to the table. This kind of thing could only be understood and not spoken. However, this Qin Wushuang, they did not know whether he was pretending to be stupid or did not understand. He actually asked such a low-level question, it was not easy for them to answer. How to answer? Could they tell him that the territory of the ascending dragon slope had already been divided by them? Their own territory, others could not easily intrude? Qin Wushuang, don't pretend to be stupid. Qin Hao was the first to lose his cool. After entering the ascending dragon slope, no one would not know the rules here. Really? Didn't I want to know? Why don't you tell me? Qin Wushuang said with a smile. Qin Hao was not an idiot, of course, he would not say it himself. His gaze suddenly stopped on Qin Lan. He pointed at Qin Lan. "You know that person, right? Can you tell him?" Being pointed at by Qin Hao, Qin Lan's heart trembled. He hurriedly waved his hand. "It's none of my business, I don't know, I'm not here." "You don't know?" Hearing this, Qin Hao became angry. How could this Qin Lan not know? Hearing this, Qin Lan thought that this was bad. Qin Wuxuang could pretend not to know, but he could not pretend not to know. He even took the initiative to join their circle. He was just rejected. Qin Wuxuang said indifferently, "He doesn't make the decision here, what he says doesn't count. It only counts if you guys say it." Qin Shaohong sneered, "Qin Wuxuang, I thought you were a great guy. It turns out that you are just an undeserved reputation, a person who pretends to be stupid." Qin Wuxuang said leisurely, "It's still better than someone who dares to do something but does not dare to admit it, right? You guys dare to set the rules privately, why don't you dare to tell me the rules? Afraid that I will complain?" Needless to say, they were afraid that Qin Wuxuang would complain. Whoever spoke those words would be unlucky. "If you want to complain, go ahead." Qin Shaohong pretended not to care. "You don't say, I don't even have the interest to care about your little tricks, let alone complain." Qin Wuxuang was a little impatient. "Do what you should do, don't attract attention here. I still have things to do." Qin Wuxuang, do you think that with us here today, we can let you leave this place easily? Don't tell me you plan to let me leave here lying down? That's right, if you don't give young Master Hong an explanation today, we can only do things according to the rules. Don't blame us for bullying you. This is the rule of ascending dragon slope. Give Qin Shaohong an explanation? Qin Wuxuang said leisurely, "What kind of explanation does he need? It's simple, your people trespassed into young Master Hong's territory yesterday, you must apologize to him. From today onwards, you must not contradict him. At the ascending dragon slope, you must be obedient and well-behaved. You want me to pretend to be a grandson, right?" Qin Wuxuang asked with a light smile. "It's good that you can understand it this way, this is the right role for you," Qin Hao said proudly. Qin Wuxuang's expression turned cold. "Very good, so this is the rule of ascending dragon slope? Then listen well, Qin Wuxuang's rule is, whoever's rule makes me happy, I will play with them. Whoever's rules make me unhappy, then I'll make that person unhappy. You guys, if you don't want to find trouble, then disappear from my sight. Or else, what do you plan to do, tell me? I will accept it. This is truly strange, the Qin clan is full of righteousness, yet there are black sheep like you guys?" Qin Shaohong's expression changed as he asked with a cold voice, "Did you all hear it? This guy speaks with such arrogance. He is not putting us in his eyes at all." Qin Wuxuang waved his hand. "Don't speak nonsense here. Qin Shaohong, don't think that I don't know your little thoughts. Yesterday, my subordinate already told you clearly, if you want to find trouble, just come. I have underestimated you. You were able to pull in so many accomplices. The most lamentable thing is that each of you are being used by Qin Shaohong as a spear, yet you still feel proud and proud. Are you not afraid of tarnishing the signboard of the heavenly Emperor Qin clan?" Qin Wuxuang berated angrily. The ancestors of the Qin clan had built the golden signboard of the Qin clan with each blade and spear. They had spent so much effort and shed so much blood and sweat. You are inside this house, but your own people are digging up the corner of your own family. Even if you don't feel ashamed, I feel ashamed with you. After he had finished speaking, Qin Wuxuang made a hand gesture. 10 sealed spiritual beasts, Bao Bao and Lone swarmed out from the yard. Qin Wuxuang said to the purple pupil golden bull with an indifferent tone, "Purple pupil, it seems that these guys have too much energy. Play with them, don't hit them too hard." The purple pupil golden bull was worried about having no place to practice. Upon hearing Qin Wuxuang's instruction, he responded with a thunderous voice. He walked out of the ranks with a roaring laugh and glared with his copper bell-like eyes. "You guys, come at me together." As soon as he roared, his imposing manner emerged instantly. A surge of air surged from his entire body and pressed over like a perilous wave. Qin Wuxuang's lazy voice emerged unhurriedly from behind. "Qin Shaohong, you four, listen well. If you can hold on for 15 minutes under my hand, you can set the rules here. If you can't hold on, then get out of my sight as far as you can think. Domineering, this was the legendary domineering aura. As Qin Lan watched this situation from next door, a strange sense of excitement emerged from his heart. The way he looked at Qin Wushuang had become different. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 633. Qin Lan felt that the thing he had been pursuing was right before his eyes. In these few years, these small circles at the ascending dragon slope did not accept him, a foreign disciple. They did not trust him. It caused him to run into a wall everywhere. He had always wanted to find a backer. Wasn't this backer right before his eyes? At this moment, Qin Lan realized that he was not afraid. On the contrary, he was looking forward to it. The strength of the purple pupil golden ox was extraordinary. As soon as he stepped out, his imposing manner was already full of oppression. Although he did not continue to activate his power, it already made Qin Shaohong and the others feel it was difficult to breathe. All the giant trees outside the yard, even the ones that required two people to wrap their arms around, bowed before this imposing manner. Creak, 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 creak. Among the 12 sealed spiritual beasts, the purple pupil golden ox and the burning sky explosive tiger were the ones that would go berserk the most easily. After going berserk, their combat power would be astonishing. Currently, the purple pupil golden ox had not gone berserk. However, the imposing manner it had produced was already something Qin Shaohong and the others could not resist. Among these dozen people, Qin Shaohong and the other 3 were all at the perfect void martial stage. Because of their strength, they were able to become the leaders of this small circle. However, at this moment, they discovered helplessly that the strength they were proud of was incredibly weak before this giant guy. When the other party initiated his imposing manner casually, instantly, it seemed to have locked them into a space cage. If they had not reacted quickly and kept retreating, this move from the other party would have swallowed them all. After retreating a few hundred meters, they looked at this purple pupil golden ox with astonishment. Instantly, each of their expressions had lost their previous arrogance and haughtiness. The purple pupil golden ox let out a mad laugh and took 2 steps forward in large strides. He looked disdainfully at Qin Shaohong and the others. "Come here, why are you running so fast? Where is that burst of arrogance from a moment ago?" Each time the purple pupil golden ox took a step forward, Qin Shaohong and the others could not help but take a dozen steps back. Although they were haughty, they were not brainless. The strength displayed by this burly man was much, much stronger than theirs. The gap between them was not something that could be made up for by numbers alone. As Qin Wushuang watched everything, he knew that it was about time. He did not plan to teach these guys a lesson. In fact, his intention was simple: it would be enough to let these guys know the difficulties and retreat. At this stage, Qin Wushuang did not want to be too high-profile, and it was even more impossible for him to make their relationship too stiff. After all, this was just a small internal conflict. To put it bluntly, it was harmless. Purple Eye, wait. Qin Wushuang stopped the next movement of the purple pupil golden bull and walked forward slowly. As he looked at Qin Shaohong and the others who were still in a state of shock, he said with an indifferent tone, "Everyone, with your provocation today, if they were not disciples of the Qin clan, certainly someone would have bled or even died on the spot." Qin Shaohong was clearly still somewhat unconvinced. But so what if he was unconvinced? The fear they showed just now was already embarrassing enough. No matter what, they had lost this round. "Qin Wushuang, you win. We didn't prepare enough today. But don't be complacent. Didn't you rely on your good luck to take in a few powerful subordinates?" Qin Hao clearly couldn't afford to lose and began to find excuses. Although the others didn't say anything, their expressions were the same. Obviously, they all had the same idea. Qin Wushuang said coldly, "I don't want to discuss such boring topics as luck with you. I will only tell you that since we are all disciples of the Qin clan, this time, I don't want to make a big fuss. However, if you think that I, Qin Wushuang, am easy to talk to, don't blame me for not reminding you next time. I will let you understand the meaning of regret." The purple pupil golden bull glared with his big eyes. "What are you looking at? Did you not hear me or something? If it weren't for the fact that you all have the surname Qin, I would have slapped you to death." Qin Wushuang revealed a light smile. "Purple pupil, don't be rude." The purple pupil golden bull chuckled and gave a snort at Qin Shaohong and the others. Then, he retreated to the back. Qin Wushuang knew that these people were unconvinced as he said again, "Everyone, I, Qin Wushuang, have never paid attention to any form of power. I also don't plan to form unnecessary grudges with you. I didn't come here because I wanted to cling on to anyone's backing. I will only tell you that the only reason I am here is because my surname is Qin. Today, the only reason I am being courteous to you is also because your surname is Qin. As for how we will get along in the future and where our relationship will go, you can think about it yourselves. Whether you want to be forceful or soft, I, Qin Wushuang, will accompany you. However, I will say the ugly words first. Regardless of the method, I, Qin Wushuang, can guarantee that in the end you guys will be the ones to lose." Bao Bao had endured for a long time. At this moment, he could not help but walk up and cry out, "You guys really don't know what you are talking about. Regardless of how strong the heavenly Luo Daoist sect is, weren't they still defeated by our boss? Yes, you guys are the most exceptional ones among the core disciples. However, if you truly think you are strong, why don't you go fight with the heavenly punishing Villa, or the Sound of Thunder sect? Is it interesting to fight among ourselves?" When Qin Wushuang heard these words, he could not refrain from laughing. Bao Bao's tone was clearly copying Qin Wushuang. It was practically a carbon copy of him. If it was Qin Wushuang who had spoken these words, it would not have appeared abrupt. However, Bao Bao's old and experienced tone sounded extremely dramatic. Even Lone, who had always been serious, found it funny inwardly. Qin Shaohong and the others had failed to act pretentious and had ended up in such a situation. They had lost all face. However, when they thought of the strength of that guy, they did not dare to vent their anger despite having a belly full of anger. They had heard that Qin Wushuang was a ruthless person through various channels. Today, he did not turn hostile because they were from the same clan. If they continued to provoke him without eyes, in case they provoked this Qin Wushuang, they would not be able to get off the stage. They would suffer losses if the matter was brought to the chief. Regardless, they were the ones who had caused trouble first. Qin Shaohong took a deep breath and was about to say a few words of courtesy. Qin Wushuang interrupted him and waved his hand impatiently. "All right, I don't want to hear these words. Qin Shaohong, whether you are a friend or a foe, go back and think about it. If you come next time with courtesy, everyone will still be good brothers of the Qin clan. Of course, I will not spread today's matter to the outside world. However, if you still act like this next time, I don't care what background you have, or what kind of support you have, I will definitely make you suffer." After he had finished speaking, he flung his sleeve. "Purple pupil, see the guests off." The purple pupil golden bull laughed mischievously and walked forward casually. "Did you hear that? My master is seeing the guests off. Why are you still here? Do you want to eat lunch?" Qin Shaohong was disappointed and frustrated. He felt extremely vexed. How come he felt that this situation had completely deviated from the path he had expected? The prepared lines and routines could not be used at all. After holding back for a while, he still did not say anything. He could not help but feel flustered and exasperated. With a red face, he roared with a thick neck, Qin Wushuang, I want to fight you one-on-one. If you have the skills, let's fight one-on-one. When Qin Shaohong spoke these words, the other three could not help but feel somewhat surprised. What was going on with this Qin Shaohong? He wanted to challenge Qin Wushuang to a one-on-one battle? However, they immediately realized that at this moment, it seemed that a one-on-one battle was the best way to turn the situation around. These three could not help but feel somewhat regretful. Yes, although that Qin Wushuang was powerful, he did not seem to have reached the perfect void martial stage. If they were to fight one-on-one, they would have a high chance of winning. Why did Qin Shaohong bring it up first? Qin Wushuang's expression sank. This Qin Shaohong was truly unwilling to give up. Since you don't want the face I gave you, then don't blame me for slapping your face. Qin Shaohong, are you sure? Qin Wushuang asked with a low voice. Qin Shaohong was completely anxious. Of course I'm sure. Qin Wushuang, if you have the guts, don't let your subordinates help. What kind of skill is it to rely on your subordinates? Bao Bao could not help but curse. Qin Shaohong, you are truly shameless. Why don't you go fight one-on-one with the heavenly punishing villa and the sound of thunder sect? See if they will fight one-on-one with you. Our boss did not step on your tail, right? Do you think you haven't lost enough face? Qin Wushuang, do you have the guts? Qin Shaohong ignored Bao Bao's provocation and glared at Qin Wushuang with a red face. He felt that since this Qin Wushuang did not make a sound, certainly he was timid. Or else, why would he not fight one-on-one with him? Qin Wushuang glared at Qin Shaohong with a cold gaze. Gradually, the peaceful light in his eyes transformed into a form of gloomy and cold fire. A curve that would only appear when one was angry emerged from the corner of his mouth. However, Qin Shaohong saw this as a form of timidity as he said with a cold sneer, Qin Wushuang, don't tell me that besides relying on your subordinates to conquer the world, you have no other skills. One-on-one, if you can beat me in the future at the ascending dragon slope, you will be my boss. Regardless of where I go, I will take a detour when I see you. Initially, Qin Shaohong was not such an irrational person. However, today's encounter had truly made him sullen. He felt that using provocation to force Qin Wushuang to fight one-on-one would be the best solution. One-on-one? Qin Wushuang shook his head with a cold sneer. Honestly, he felt that this suggestion was extremely childish. With their strength, why would they play such low-level games from their martial arts student days? The killings on the battlefield, each blade and spear were all done to kill the other party. Who would want to play one-on-one with you? Qin Wushuang, don't tell me you don't have the guts? Qin Shaohong approached him step by step. Qin Shaohong, are you sure you want to fight one-on-one with me? Qin Wushuang took a deep breath and barely suppressed the anger inside his heart. He never thought that he would meet the disciples of the Qin clan on the battlefield. However, this Qin Shaohong had challenged his bottom line. Since you will not give up until you see the Yellow River, then I will let you drown when you see the Yellow River. Qin Shaohong thought that Qin Wushuang had taken the bait as he laughed evilly. Of course I am sure, I am just afraid that you are not. Qin Shaohong, you must be prepared to die if you want to fight one-on-one with me. To me, your challenge is a form of deep offense. And in between, there is only one result for those who use this method to offend me, and that is death. Qin Shaohong, if you are not afraid of death, then let honored warrior Ji Huai make a life and death contract for you. Then, you can choose the time and place. This was not a threat. Since Qin Wushuang's martial arts student days, the two brothers Zhang Xian and Zhang Yao, who had challenged him one-on-one, had all died by his hands. There was also the disciple of the old devil Ji Yin. The list was endless. Although Qin Wushuang did not want to treat the disciples of the Qin clan as his enemies, apparently, this Qin Shaohong had also touched Qin Wushuang's bottom line when he did not give up. Finally, Qin Wushuang's anger had been ignited by this Qin Shaohong. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.